So, guys, just a quick hands up. Is the screen visible to everyone? Uh,
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, it
Yes.
is.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So, guys, welcome back again, right? If I talk about in the context, right? So, guys, I think more or less we discussed quite a few things, right? When we talked about, right, how to gather corpuses and all of those things, wherein you talk about, right, the giant corpuses which are present, you can always download them and work around with those, right? If I talk about, then we discussed here about BPE, if you guys all recall and stuff, right? I'm just quickly going through because the agenda for today is a little bit huge. So if I talk about, right, so we talked about these few things, right? Attention and feed forward layers, right? And interestingly enough, right? If I talk about, and everyone I think now recalls about decoding strategies, we discussed about it, right? We'll look into that a little bit more in the context today as well. Okay. So, more or less, I think we all talked about these things, right? I told you about GPT-2, how that became the base model and things worked out from there, right? So, and moving forward, we talked about GPT-3, the actual guy. I mean, when you talk about large language model, one of its kind when it started up, right? Because it was really large, depending on the context which we talked, right? And I also discussed about few things what happens inside, right? And I told you one more very important thing yesterday, guys, right? The new, I mean, the guys who store information, right, in the crude sense, in the transformer, right? That is nothing but basically your feed forward neural networks. Those are the guys who actually store the kind of information which it has been trained on. But obviously, I told you about that experiment yesterday. It is not exactly like, okay, somewhere named Virat and Kohli. It is like, it is a space which is like a foggy cloud, right? Which you can talk about, right? So I told you about that dream space, right? Wherein you talk about, right? So a little experiment which we did and stuff, right? So that's how it works out, okay? So more or less, the whole idea is these are the actual neural units, right? Which retain the information, right? And over the course of 96 layers, right? I told you about how you can derive those numbers as well, right? We discussed about that as well, right? In fact, those 96 comes from the yesterday I showed it to you, right? That 12k you basically divide it by 128, you wind up getting the number 96, and that is how you talk about, right? So you have that many number of heads. I told you about that as well, right? Number of sir,
Sorry,
am
sorry, sorry.
yeah, yeah, it's okay. So, I'm audible, right? To everyone, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
Yes,
code.
yes, you are
Perfect.
audible.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, guys, I think more or less what we discussed about yesterday as well, that giant farm, right, which is containing 175 billion parameters. How are they divided? We discussed about those, right? If I talk about in the context of the weights, right, we discussed about those as well, right? If I talk about, right, and then I told you, right, depending on the number of vocabs, right, what number of token, what kind of tokenizer you are using and stuff, right? That depends on that, right? So GPT-4 has 100K tokens. So number of vocabs for the embedding layer depends on that, right? So GPT-3 had this many, so you multiply it that way, right? And I told you, if you have embedding, right, obviously you need to unembed, because unless and until you don't unembed, you don't understand what word actually has been predicted, right? So I think more or less these two come in pairs, right? And then obviously there are intermediate things in between, key query value spaces, right? In fact, there is output, right? I described it yesterday as well, right? This output actually, the way it actually looks like, right, is if I talk about, right, I've described it multiple number of times. These three things look similar to each other, especially in the context of GPT-3, guys. Okay, I mean GPT models, or in fact, not just GPT models, any of the LLMs, right? If I talk about these three, come hand in hand. They have the same kind of a dimension if you look into, right? But on the other hand, this guy here, output, although it might look like having that value, right? But I mean, for each of the head, you don't have 96 values. Okay. Instead, this is like a projection which acts as a square matrix. Okay, so that is why you have 12k, and I think everyone remembers 128 multiplied by 96 is again 12k. So that becomes a square matrix of size 12k if I talk about, right? So the way it is oriented is like this. So you can think of it like you have 12k rows, right? And what happens to these, right? There are 128, so these get stitched together, right? So मतलब आपने उसको धागे से बांध दिया है, right? So it looks like something like this, right? So and that is how the entire matrix looks like in the context of 12k cross 12k, and that is why even like we discussed about it, right? That is why it is actually a square matrix, right? The way it is organized, and I told you about that as well. And just to make it fun in the context, right, we visited this nice LLM visualizer yesterday, right? The farm, which actually looks like a bit of the LLM segment, right? If I talk about, right, which talks about in the context there, right, and wherein I described about the context. If you talk about if you look into, right, you can see these values here, right? KQV, KQV matrices. If I talk about, you can look into that, and there is this projection matrix, which is like a square matrix, which you saw, right? I told you that looks like a square matrix, and this is exactly what we talk about. And then there are other attention outputs, and you have this residuals, right, where you join these values and get. So I told you, right, E plus delta E or A plus delta A. It has been described very nicely by Aditya sir when he took session about residuals, right? You can see the line arrows which goes to it. Okay, so that's the whole point of it, which I wanted to talk about. This yesterday I told you about, right? This is a very this does not exist really in terms of large language model. It was a toy model. Okay, so nano GPT actually does not exist, but this is a toy model to understand how transformers look like. And you can see 85k parameters. I told you this is transformer 0 contain 3 transformers layer, right? If I talk about transformer 1, and there is transformer 2 if I talk about. And on the left hand side you can see the nice what do you say, अरे यार इसको क्या बोलते हैं भाई, मैं बार बार भूल जाता हूँ. you I mean I think सर क्या बोलते हैं उसको सर?
Sir, क्या हो गया?
Architecture.
Architecture.
I forget. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Yeah, so you can see the nice architecture diagram on the left-hand side. That's represented here on the right-hand side, if I talk about, right? So I think more or less you understand the concept there. You can see those layers, I mean, soft maxing and everything, right? So more or less, and I told you, right? Look at this farm here. This is a nano GPT, and I told you to compare it with GPT-3. Look at this. Here is nano GPT, the scale of nano GPT, and look at the scale of GPT-3 when you talk about in the context, right? And now GPT-4 is, I mean, in trillions, right? If I talk about, and just to show that, right? I showed it to you yesterday. You can count it, right? The number of transformer heads, if I talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 12 of it, and you multiply by 8. There are 8 of this, right? 12 into 8, 96. So that's how the number comes into picture if you talk about, right? And there's the other variants of GPT-2 and stuff. If you talk about, you can play around with. So I'm not going to much talk about that, right? That's the whole idea of it. There's a nice website, and I shared that to you yesterday. So you can always look into it, guys. Okay. Now, I think more or less everyone understands where these come from, right? And then that's why my focus was to tell you that attention is not everything you need the way it is portrayed on the paper, right? If you talk about, it's basically, we realize that, right, attention is only over a third, like 1/3 of what you need. And we saw the number of parameters contributing as well, right? So 14 into 4 was roughly around, guys, 14 table, if I talk about 28, 56. Yeah, so 56, right? So 56 billion is contributed by key, query, value, and output, right? Which is the actual attention mechanism, if I talk about, right? Whereas if you look at these guys, up projection, down projection, which I described yesterday, right? The MLP block, which we talked about yesterday, right? That contributed to the rest of the 2/3. You can see 57 billion and 57 billion, which is almost like, what do you say, 114 change billion or whatever, right? If I talk about in the context. And that is a huge contribution, right? And that's why these guys act as memory units in the context of the overall players which we talk about. I hope that's clear for everyone, guys. Okay. Now, post this, right, we interestingly went to talk about and where we actually stopped our discussion, right? Today we are going to look into much more into the things, right? Now that you see, guys, that you saw in the entire step, right, that how you created it, right? You have this LLM visualizer. You saw that you have now created what we call as a base model. There are two things, guys. Okay, when you talk about these models, these large language models, right, you might get confused as to, okay, आजकल तो इतने सारे models available हैं, right? What does that mean and stuff, right? Which one should I refer to and stuff, right? Now we are going to make a clear cut distinction in our forthcoming slides. Okay, so I told you that phase one dealt with pre training phase, right? If I talk about, right, wherein we discussed about all those steps and stuff, right, what happened, and we now have a complete idea about what goes on inside the transformer, thanks to the 10 days session which we took in the context of it, right? If I talk about a little bit in the effort, right, which we all have given, right? And so I hope that's particularly understandable. Now, once you have done that, what next, right? You might be wondering, like, what next, right? You have created. So let me tell you guys, right? Once you do this, right? I told you about this on the left hand side. If you talk about, right, once you do the training and everything, after those 32,000 training batches, after those 3.5 days of intensive training, right? What you get as the output is called as a base model. Okay, so yesterday I also showed you about this service provider called as hyperbolic. Okay, so I hope I asked you all yesterday to create an account on hyperbolic, right? If I talk about, right, I'm hoping that you all have created it, right? Because there's a nice way of interacting with it, and there is a reason why I'm talking about it, right? But just to give you a brief overview, this particular website also gives you GPU services. So you can rent out GPUs. I showed you that the GPUs of this grade, right? 80 what do you say? 80 GB of virtual memory space. If I sorry, VRAM space. If I talk about, right, that is a, I mean, it takes a lot of money to buy it, right? So who buys it, right? If I talk about in the context, because they're like almost pertaining to 50 to 60 lakhs, right? And then you do the training for 3 4 days, and then you think of what should I do with this, right? That's the whole idea. That's why you have these kind of services, affordable cloud services, who rent out these GPUs. Okay, so in case you want to create your own transformer, right, from scratch and everything, right, you can do that. Like, in fact, companies like OpenAI and these guys, right, what they do is they rent out. They have huge infrastructure. They don't buy it. Okay, they rent it out. Okay, so they do their entire process over in the rented form. Obviously, it is expensive, right? Because I told you, right? If I talk about, right, I think if I go to GPUs here, you'll get a brief idea about. It might say, like you can see. क्या नाम है? Yeah, so I'll go to inference here. I think somewhere it was there where, yeah, look at this, guys. I mean, okay, this is only for inferencing. I don't know where we have that. इसमें prices भी दिखाता था. Let me go to Google without wasting time. Hyperbolic uh, XYZ, what do you say? GPU prices. Let's let it, yeah, I think more or less, yeah. This is the website, Hyperbolic. You can find it in the docs of Hyperbolic XYZ, right? You can see here, guys, right? So if I talk about, right, I mean, this is for inferencing price. I don't want inferencing price. Yeah, look at this. Hourly hosting price. These are the ones, right? If you talk about, right, for 1 hour, it might take you $2 or maybe $1.8, right? If I talk about, right, which is roughly, I think dollar is now 80, is it? Yes, 80 rupees, right? If I talk about roughly around, right? $1 equals to, I think, 80 rupees. So close to, I think, 160 rupees per hour you pay for these services, right? And imagine you are running it for 3 days, right? So you multiply it by that factor, right? If I talk about in the context there. So you rent it out. The idea is you rent it out. Then once you're done with the context, just leave it off, right? If I talk about now, moving forward, right? I told you that this is hyperbolic also offers inference models, right? So the idea here is, right, I told you about the two keywords, right? One is called as training, one is inference, right? During the time of training, like whatever you do, you train the entire network, right? If I talk about the transformer network or whatever you call it in the context, right? But in the case of the inference, what you use it to extract the output and stuff, or in fact, you while you do it in during the time of running. Okay, so that is what is inference. If I talk about, right, now, very interesting enough, right? If you look into, right, there are a few of the models. I think, yeah, I'll just go to run inference. Let's see the different types under run inference. I can go to models. Okay, yesterday I told you, right, there are many models here. There are even, guys, interesting thing is you'll also find, you can see these are all categorized, right? In case you guys are interested enough, you can see here. I used that word earlier, right? That whatever you do after that, the whatever you have created, right, that is called as a base model, right? It has any model which is not tuned, right? Let's see how a base model actually looks like versus what it means when it is tuned, right? If I talk about, right, and for comparison, I will take the same kind of a base model, okay, and after tuning, how does it look like? We'll talk about and compare that. Okay, so we'll have a very interesting session ahead in the context here, right? So you can see various categories: text based, image based, language models based, and stuff, or I think vision language model based, if I talk about, right? So you have many of them, if I talk about, right? You have, but you can see that every model, almost every model, has that B parameter. So it talks about billions in the context there. So you have the sea of different models. Okay, what I meant to talk about, right? Now, what I for our convenience, right? Let me, the one which we are going to experiment on. Let's talk about LLAMA, Llama model. If I talk about, right, we have Llama's different models. These are all from Facebook, by the way, right? So Facebook does not exist, right? So Meta, right? If I talk about, right? So from Meta, so if I talk about, so you can see here, guys. Okay, so I think more or less, the one which we are, I told you, right? This is a fairly very big model. I told you about that, right? Llama 3.1405B. This I can also call it as, by the way, guys, once you tune it, you can call it as a instruct or chat model, by the way. Okay, so you can call this model as a chat or instruct model. This is after doing certain steps, meaning after I told you about these three phases, right? After phase one, this is what you get. Okay, this is post phase one. Okay, after phase two, this is what you get, guys. Okay, I hope it's particularly understandable in the context. I will show you what it means, okay, in due time. But you can see here, right? Both of them are, you can see the parameter count, right? It has, both of them has 405 B, B as parameters. You can see the names as well, right? In the context, but we will see the fundamental difference. Okay, so I hope everyone understood and everyone has created the account and everything, right? That's my simple hope here, right? And everyone has claimed $1. Okay, that is free if you put your what you say mobile number. If you link it with your mobile number, it will be free, right? And $1 is for, I think, a few of the tokens, right? And that's more than enough. By the way, let's come back to here. Okay, so you have these, right? Llama 3.1 and stuff, right? I will directly click on this. Okay, I could have gone to that point and clicked on Llama, but I have my account logged in here. So I opened that in what do you say, incognito mode. So I had to log in and stuff. So I came back here and did it. Okay. So I think more or less, yeah, sir. Aziz, sir, you have raised your hand, please.
Soumya,
Haji, sir.
I didn't get these $1. I got only zero.
I think, sir, उसमें सर मेरे सर मैंने भी ये अभी बनाया था, रिसेंटली आई क्रिएटेड इट एंड इट टोल्ड मी कि आप अगर अपना फोन नंबर डालते हो, सर कुछ तो है सर उसमें, आप
What about the remaining people? Maybe have they tried or
have we guys
मुझे लगता है सर ऑफर खत्म हो गया सर. I was actually thinking of Bitcoin mining, sir, actually. So if that would be possible, maybe not $1 or $2, we will be having some more dollars by using
सर
this again.
ये
Yeah,
ऑफर
but
लगता है सर
hyperbolic की
कौन सा?
actually वो policy है कि वो basically वो mining kind of
हाँ
things वो
माइनिंग
allow
का,
नहीं करते। ट्राई
हाँ
किया था।
एग्जैक्टली सर, ये तो है
हम्म।
सर। क्योंकि सर
Yeah.
अगर, क्योंकि सर बिटकॉइन माइनिंग के लिए यू यूज द मोर द जीपीयू इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर यू हैव, द बेटर यू माइन क्रिप्टो करेंसी। तो अब ये हाइपरबॉलिक जो है, दे प्रोवाइड जीपीयूज, उनका फंडामेंटल काम ही है जीपीयू प्रोवाइड करना, तो उन्होंने बैन करके रखा है कि बेटा
Uh,
इतने सस्ते में
so
तुम अगर ज्यादा पैसा निकालोगे तो होता थोड़ी ऐसे।
right. Right.
दैट इज
So
द
मैं सर
थिंग। हाँ सर
मैं
बताइए सर।
एक ना एक ये था मेरे पास एक आइडिया व्हेन यू नो व्हेन यू शोड दिस जीपीटी ओएसएस मॉडल जब आपने दिखाया, सो
हाँ
आई जस्ट
सर।
रिमेम्बर कि इसमें क्या होता है कि हम लोग ना एक वो यूज करते हैं, क्या उसको एमओई कहते हैं ना, क्या था उसका
हाँ
लाइक
हाँ, मिक्सचर ऑफ,
मिक्सचर ऑफ एक्सपर्ट
एक्सपर्ट्स,
शायद
हाँ
से ना।
एग्जैक्टली,
हाँ
मिक्सचर ऑफ
हाँ।
एक्सपर्ट्स
जो
यूज करते हैं,
हाँ
हाँ।
जो बेसिकली क्या होता है कि उसमें अप प्रोजेक्शन डाउन प्रोजेक्शन के बीच में करीब करीब आई गेस, हाँ वही था उसका स्ट्रक्चर, दैट
हाँ
यू कैन ऐड सम कंटेक्स्ट आल्सो। तो एक
हाँ
मॉडल व्हाट आई हैव ट्राइड इज in GPT also, like for GPT this OSS, basically what we can do, if it tries to think something, so we can opt the thinking also, like you can have some choices कि जैसे ये
हाँ
होता है ना कि
सर,
जैसे आप कुछ
आएंगे
सोच रहे
सर,
हो
आज
एंड
आज मेरे सेशन में है सर। मैं आपको वो सारी चीज इसमें वो दिखाऊंगा। वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू टेक
हाँ हाँ
ओएसएस, बट मैं दूसरे उससे दिखाऊंगा, बट हाँ
ओके
वेरी
या
नाइसली, हाँ हाँ,
that
वेरी
one is
नाइसली
really
सेट सर।
amazing.
बड़ा मजा,
I was
बहुत
really
मजा आएगा
amazed by
सर।
that. Exactly,
सर मैं,
exactly.
बस सर मैं चाहता हूँ कि सर मेरे दिमाग में जो जो कंटेंट मैंने ये बना के रखा है वो प्रेजेंट कर पाऊँ, बस इतना है
Yeah,
सर
yeah,
मेरे
yeah.
पास।
Thank
वेरी
you sir.
नाइसली
अच्छा हो
सेट
गया
सर,
आपने
हाँ
डाल लिया।
नाइस, नाइस
बहुत क्रिएटिव
सर।
वे है वो
हाँ
एक्चुअली,
सर इट इज
उसे
सर,
यूज
अभी
करने
हम
का।
लोग देखेंगे कि मतलब the things which we get, I mean they are not even fraction of what it is capable of doing actually। तो सर
एग्जैक्टली
वही के,
वही
हाँ। तो
एग्जैक्टली सर।
वो बट सर लेट्स होप भगवान का दुआ रहा तो कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, देखते हैं सर। लेट्स सी हाउ इट
हाँ
वर्क्स।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
या
एग्जैक्ट।
so yeah, thank you so much sir, and sir coming back to Aziz sir, guys, others as well, were you able to what do you say, get the credit a bit, कोई किसी को credit मिला क्या? अगर है तो please let me know. Aziz sir, can you do you see that deposit?
Yeah,
Can you
I
click
clicked
on
on
that?
deposit. It is showing $25,
Yes,
2500.
sir. अच्छा, $1 credit hyperbolic XYZ. I think free credit इसमें कहीं पर है सर, पता नहीं। हाइपरबॉलिक सर मैंने दो तीन, मतलब अभी सर 3-4 दिन पहले ही मैंने आई आई ब्रॉट इट अप, तो आप लोगों को दिखाने के लिए, यू नो, $1 का क्रेडिट उन्होंने दिया था, मैंने जैसे ही अपना फोन नंबर डाला था उसमें।
Created any
सर
new
इसको
email ID or older one
सर
only? Created
समझा
any
नहीं
new
सर।
email ID or older one only?
नो सर, दिस इज माय ओरिजिनल, आई मीन सर दिस इज माय पर्सनल ईमेल आईडी, उसके
हाँ,
ऊपर किया
personal
है सर
email
मैंने।
ID. हाँ,
हाँ सर
सर
उसी में ही मैंने।
इसको सिर्फ यहीं पे यूज कर सकते हैं या अकाउंट से भी मतलब कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं? जो
समझा
सर
नहीं सर।
ये $60, सो जो सर ये
वन
$1
डॉलर
है ना?
$1, हाँ
हाँ
सर, हाँ सर।
हाँ, वो सर मतलब अकाउंट से भी लिंक हो जाएगा या ऐसे ही मतलब यहीं पे यूज कर सकते
सर वो सर आप मतलब बेसिकली आप फोन नंबर डालेंगे ना सर, आप अकाउंट
हैं? हाँ
अपने इसमें, तो वो सर शायद पॉपअप आता ही है सर, वो बोलता है कि अच्छा ये रेफरल वाला प्रोग्राम क्या है, कुछ है क्या? $5 फॉर रेफरिंग, आई डोंट नो
यू
क्या
विल
करूं
लर्न
मैं।
$5।
अच्छा, फॉर यू विल अर्न $5 फॉर ईच फ्रेंड हु कंप्लीट्स, और उसके बाद एटलीस्ट टू देयर अकाउंट विद इन 14 days, तो आप लोगों के पास भी पहुंच जाएगा इट सीम्स। तो मैं ये करूं क्या सर, आप लोगों को भेजूं क्या? तो शायद आप लोगों को उस तरीके से मिल जाए।
भेजो।
लेट्स सी,
बट सर ये फाइव
देखता हूं।
क्रेडिट जो है ना $5 वो ऐड
हाँ
करना
सर,
पड़ेगा ना फिर?
नहीं 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 सर, आप बस अकाउंट बनाएंगे। आई थिंक सर आप इसी को लिंक, इस लिंक को यूज करके आप अकाउंट बनाएंगे। ओके सर। तो आई थिंक दैट विल गिव यू $5 क्रेडिट, यही बोल रहा है सर। शेयर योर यूनिक रेफरल लिंक टू फ्रेंड, यू विल अर्न $5 फॉर ईच फ्रेंड हु कंप्लीट्स। वो तो मेरे पास भी आएगा। और उसके बाद वेरीफाई देयर फोन नंबर। हाँ ये सर आपको शायद फोन नंबर वेरीफाई करना पड़ेगा। एड, अच्छा, एड एटलीस्ट $5 क्रेडिट टू देयर अकाउंट विद इन 14 days। अच्छा भाई, है ये तो कुछ ज्यादा हो गया सर। पता नहीं सर। अरे
अच्छा,
मैं,
कैरी ऑन सौम्या,
हाँ सर,
वी विल लुक एट
हाँ
इट
हाँ,
लेटर।
ठीक है सर, ठीक है सर।
आप
मैं सर
आप
एक्चुअली चाहता था कि
शुरू
आप लोग
करते
भी
हैं।
ये वाला फन पार्ट खुद भी करें, बट एनीवे सर, आई
Anyways,
होप।
yeah, you
हाँ
carry
सर,
on.
तो थोड़ा सा देख लीजिएगा एंड स्टफ, बट लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड। ओके, सो गाइज, इफ आई टॉक अबाउट let me come back to that, right? So we are going to test these wild models, right? The one which is just trained up, okay? And what I mean by that, okay, I'll ask, you can see the playground here, right, on the left hand side. राइट साइड में आपके पास कंट्रोल बार है, आप इसमें चेंज कर सकते हो। देर आर मेनी मॉडल्स अवेलेबल, राइट? इफ आई टॉक अबाउट ओएसएस जो अभी सर बता रहे थे, दोज मॉडल्स आर अवेलेबल एज वेल। डीप सीक के मॉडल्स अवेलेबल हैं। यू हैव मेनी मॉडल्स टू ट्राई आउट ऑन, ओके? So I'm choosing the base model here, meaning the model which has just fresh come out of the industry, और उसको नया नया पकाया गया है, उसके ऊपर कोई नया चीज डाला नहीं गया है। So let's see how it works out, okay? And for my convenience, मैं वैसे भी क्या करता हूँ कि मेरे को बस एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन करना होता है। यू कैन सी गाइज, राइट, दैट यू कैन बाय 1 million tokens फॉर $4। That means if I talk about, right, so मतलब पर डॉलर के हिसाब से अगर मैं बात करूं, इट इज लाइक 2.5 लाख टोकन्स मिलेंगे। तो इट इज बिट लेस फॉर मी एज वेल। तो मैं क्या करता हूं कि मुझे बस एक्सपेरिमेंट करना है, राइट? एंड दैट इज व्हाई maximum number of tokens which I want to generate, I'm not going to take 512. Let me reduce it to 128। आप 128 tokens में भी आपको पता चल जाएगा कि हो क्या रहा है, ठीक है? तो मैं ज्यादा इकोनॉमिक यूज करता हूं क्योंकि मुझे बस एक्सपेरिमेंट करना होता है, राइट? एंड आई वांट टू स्टिल कीप माय क्रेडिट ऑन। मैं ये आप देख रहे हो कि मैंने एक्सपेरिमेंट किया है, सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज 0.96। तो कुछ छोटे छोटे चीजें एक्सपेरिमेंट करने के लिए। Now, next thing, if I talk about Adarsh sir, you there, right? Adarsh sir, can you hear me? Kal sir, if you remember, Adarsh, आप हैं क्या? Yes, I think उनके वहां पर कोई प्रॉब्लम हो रहा होगा। So yeah, guys, if you look into what I wanted to talk about here, right? You see this temperature setting and the top P setting, right? If I talk about, I have the flexibility of, I mean, completely turning off the temperature, right? And if I talk about, I need at least a few ounces for top P or probability setting, if I talk about, right? Because उसी के basis में ही prediction होगा, but मैं इसमें completely temperature को off कर सकता हूँ, and that is what will give me, if you recall, right, in the context, right, which is going to be greedy, the greedy approach. It will take the greedy approach in that case. अब मेरे पास थोड़ा टेम्परेचर है, थोड़ा मतलब मैं उसको क्रिएटिव थिंकिंग के लिए पुश कर सकता हूं कि भाई तू थोड़ा सा और, इतने सारे 405 बिलियन पैरामीटर के साथ ट्रेन हुआ है, राइट? So you might be having a lot of I mean lot of context, right? You remember, right? I told you that llama 3.1405b based model has been trained on 15 trillion token from fine web। तो उसमें काफी कुछ उसने लर्न किया है, if you talk about, right guys? Okay, now on the left hand side, I'm going to put some of the queries, right? We are going to also start with how prompt works and stuff, guys. So it is a joint lecture on the same, right? If I talk about, and in the middle, I'll tell you about the little bit of a structure which we are talking about, right? I'm going to ask it a very simple question, okay? Let's say I ask it, okay, what is, let's say, maybe, what is 2 plus 2? What do you expect? मैं इसको चलाने से पहले मैं आप लोगों से पूछना भी चाहूंगा कि if I talk about, right, what do you expect it, how would you like it to behave, guys? I have written, consider it as I said, guys, right, it is a base model, okay? And I'm asking the question as What is 2 plus 2? What do you think will be the output to this? आपको क्या लगता है? What do you feel about that? That's what I'm asking. I mean, obviously it is prompting and stuff. I mean, I'm not asking you to be absolute, right? Let's see and derive the analogy, which we are because हम लोग यहाँ पर भी experiment कर रहे हैं and we want to go ahead and understand what is going on and stuff, right? तो क्या लगता है आपको? क्या आएगा? आपने मेरे पैरामीटर्स राइट हैंड साइड में देख लिए कि मैक्सिमम टोकन्स it is going to generate is 128, okay, and there is a flexibility in the temperature and stuff if I talk about, okay. Temperature आपको याद होगा, I told you that it controls randomness, right, if I talk about, right, in the context there, right? And if I talk about take 0.9, I mean, if I talk about this is the cumulative probability. So all the 90% of the cumulative probability is being taken in the context here, if I talk about, right? So it can range from 0 to 1, but 0 can never happen because you need something, right? You can't have a probability of 0, by the way. I think everyone understands. I cannot convert it to a 0 probability. Okay, what I mean by that is if I try to run this, okay, you can see here it says JSON parsing failed, object error. It says top P must be in the, can you see this here? It says open range of
Greater than
0.
0.
Yeah, exactly. It should be greater than 0 and but can be equal to 1.
Equal
You
to
can understand. Yes, perfect, perfect. And that's why it directly gives me an error. So I'm just going to give a whatever random, what do you say, p probability and stuff, just to wanted to show you that this is not possible because obviously you can't. I mean, take out from something which is not existing. You say that 0 probability, meaning there is nothing to predict. You got it, right? So I think you can understand the context here. So this also clears a little bit of the confusions which happens. So now coming back to my original question, what do you expect if I write this? Now I have given everything here. What do you think? Jaldi, jaldi, guys.
maybe it
Jaldi.
can elaborate that what is 2 plus 2. It can elaborate, like it can give you a paragraph type thing, because as we can see now, temperature is 0.7. So it is like
Okay.
the
Okay.
model should be
What?
more creative.
Okay.
So
What
it
about
is
now,
like
sir?
maybe it can do arithmetical operation, or it can define the entire process, that why 2 plus 2 is 4, or maybe
Uh-huh.
22 is also possible, like
Okay. Nice.
concatenation and
Very nice.
arithmetical operation. So these are the
Nice.
possibilities. Let's see.
Nicely said, sir. Very nice, sir. I'm very happy. Yeah, exactly. Many things could be possible, right? Like it could do arithmetic computation, right? And it could do, I mean, some things related to 2 plus 2. Or it can concatenate and stuff, right? If I talk about, let's see. And I've also decreased the temperature. Doesn't matter in the context. I'll show you what I mean. Let's run it.
Amazing.
Sometime.
Amazing,
Look
sir.
at this, sir. Look at this. Okay. It has no context whatsoever, right, sir? Right? Now let me maybe increase the temperature, by the way. Okay, let's experiment one more time, okay? And let me write it again, okay? We'll see what is going on, okay? Let me write it again. You can see, just look at this. And you won't believe this guy has been trained on 405 billion parameters and is a base model. We'll talk about it, guys. Okay. But I'm going to have some of the iterations. Okay. I'm going to run it again. But you can see that every time when you do that, right, based on the probability, okay, it tosses the coin, right? And based on the probability, it comes with the next set of words. Okay. So let's see what comes again. Okay. So fine, okay. Let me maybe experiment it a little bit more. Here I'll say 64 maybe. I'll just say maximum number of tokens. I don't want to waste tokens because I want to run it a couple of times. You can see here that, by the way, did you notice one more thing, that it ended without a full stop, right? You understood that, right? So it has ended without a full stop. Whatever XYZ it has given, right? It has not ended. What I mean to say is it has actually produced that many number of tokens and then stopped, right? It should have, technically, what we were expecting is it should have given the answer to this is 4 and it should have stopped, right? That's the whole point, right? I want you to make a pattern out of it, okay? Let me run it maybe once more. ठीक है. Okay. Yeah. Can you see this? This is the 6th time I'm running, and now it says answer is 4, of course, right? But what is 2 plus 2 in base 3, right? It's asking a question again. The answer is 11 if
11.
I talk about, right? Right? And let me run it yet again, okay? So again, it gives gibberish, okay? Again, let's do it, maybe. Come on. You are shit. Come on. Nahi. This. Sometimes it might also generate some passages it might have seen relating to 2 plus 2, right? If I talk about, right? That's the whole point. Signal is aborted without reason. Anyway, it doesn't matter. One last time. Ah, okay, fine.
I think if
So,
model is not that smart, maybe we have to look into the data set also, na? Like because we are not providing the appropriate math. So we can improve. Let's just try that. What is 2 plus 2 in a
yeah.
mathematical
Okay,
aspect?
nice,
We can
sir.
try it.
Very nice. Nice, sir. I really wanted these kind of stuff. Yeah, in mathematics. Okay. Okay, let's do that and see. Let's have a look. But at least it did something. You're, अरे यार shit. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, sir.
really.
ये मैंने उसको refresh कर दिया था. It's going to generate
Like,
512 tokens. मेरा बर्बाद हो जाता sir. But you can see. Did you? Thanks to sir as well. Did you see something which is happening here? Did you all see something which is happening here? Okay, you can see here it says, I can almost see your mind going 2 plus 2 equals to 4, correct? That is the answer. Okay, is that the correct answer? But is the only answer. I mean, it it becomes like poetic version of what it is talking about. And after some chunks, it is again getting repetitive. Can you see this, guys? Do you see this? That what is happening to the base model, it gets again repetitive in the context and goes till like obviously 512. There are two things to observe here if you look into, right? It does not know where to stop. Number one, okay. And number two is if you talk about, right, it is repetitive in the context of what you are seeing here, right? Keeps on repeating that same context over and over again, right? Okay, fine. Very nice. I gave this particular question. Okay, so 2 plus 2 in mathematics, if I talk about, and let me reduce it to 128 now. Okay, let's ask it a new question. Okay, this time you saw one from mathematics, which we did, right? Let's say I'm saying, let's assume, right? Recommend 10 must, what do you say? Maybe must visiting places.
place to visit, huh?
Yeah, places maybe where किसका नाम बताएंगे सर? In
In
India.
India
In
or
India. Okay.
in
Okay.
India.
Let's do that. Okay. And I have restricted it to 128, by the way, guys. Okay. So let's try it. Okay. And let's see. What pattern do you see here? Says travel and tickets, vacation and rentals, recommend 10 must place. It is doing this, right? If I talk about India is a country, it gives a description about what India is, okay? And here are 10 must places. You see this, right? If I talk about, right? Let me show you here. Let me take this, whatever has been shown here. Let me just try to overall look in Google. If I talk about, right, in the context, right, you might find, right, let's say if I talk about, right, you will probably, right, number one in the list here. So sometime if I talk about, right, the way it is, let me see where it I can find some more exact stuff. If I talk about, right, let me go to that. Any places, I'm just taking some portion of it, okay, just to show it to you here. Okay, because by the way, you should remember one thing, guys, that this is llama. When I talk about llama 3.1405b parameter model, right, this has been trained, I mean, the knowledge cutoff of this model is 2023, right? If I talk about, if you remember, right, I have written it here, meaning after December 2023, whatever changes have been done in the world, it's unaware of that. Okay. So, and it is also possible that the latest models and everything, right? Obviously, right, that the pages, right? Pages also, can you see updated July 3, 2025? So obviously, whatever has been updated is not part of Llama, okay? Else, it is actually a document simulator. When I say that, I will show it to you what I mean by that, okay? I'll show you exactly why, okay? But you see that this gives me one of the variants. But you can see one thing here, one interesting thing. It shows me, right? Taj Mahal, Agra. There would be a during that time, right, when it was trained on, out of those billions of pages, right, there will be a page which has been exactly having this particular stuff written on it. Okay, and I can prove that point to you in due time. Just give me a few seconds. I'll say that to you where. But let me run it once again. Okay, just to see the variability. Okay, you can see. Can you see here what happens here? It says, I want to travel in India in coming April. Doesn't it look like someone's response, by the way? Does it not look like someone's response?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I want to travel in India in coming April. Please suggest me 10 places, right? So it looks like a response, right, to some kind of a stuff which it has been trained on. I'll make this more evident, okay? Let's move to the next question, okay? You saw one of these type of question, okay? Now I ask the question, let's say, what is the capital of India? What do you expect, guys? What do you think? What will happen given the context which we talk about? क्या लगता है?
Delhi.
It will tell you
हाँ,
about the
Delhi, the
Delhi,
capital of
yeah,
India.
exactly.
It seems.
Very
maybe some
possibly.
politicals and all. Depends
Maybe,
upon the
yeah, very
temperature
nicely
and the
said, sir.
top temp. Yeah.
Awesome. Exactly. Let me run it. Nicely said. Yeah. It gives the answer in the very first attempt, saying it is indeed New Delhi, right? India quiz. Can you see this? Right? It has been exported from some of the sites where it has looked into the information. Okay, so you can see that also country that occupies the greater part of South Asia and stuff, and whatever you talk about in the context here, right? Republic consists of 29 states, right? If I talk about, but this was not needed, right? It is giving you extra information which we do not want, right? If I talk about, let me run it one more time just to be sure about it, right? You can see here. I copied that. So, what is the capital of India? Okay, let's run it one more time. Okay. So you can see now this is a little bit different, right? In the version which you saw earlier, right? The capital of India is New Delhi, India, right? And you can see that greater part of South Asia and stuff, right? Constituting of so many states and stuff. If I talk about, right? That's the whole point, right? You can talk about in the context, right? Now let me now prove the point which I was talking about, right? Let me go to this, okay? I told you yesterday, you remember, right? That the more it visits a particular page, right, it tends to cite that page as it is. Okay, so let me just take a random animal, right? Let's say maybe giraffe. Okay, I'm just taking going to giraffe, and you see this Wikipedia page, right? Let me click on this. Okay, let me show you what I mean. I take this. Okay, and I take this stuff and let me go to this and let me just paste it here and do that. Okay, you can see here, guys. Okay, I actually copied paste till the giraffe distinguishing characteristics are. Okay, if I talk about the giraffe's distinguishing characteristics are like, let's look at it. It says its extreme long neck and legs. What do you say? Horn-like, whatever that word is called, and spotted coat patterns or coat patterns, right? It says, right? If I go to that again, let me go to, where is it? Can you see this, guys? And in fact, I might even see a lot of to a very larger extent, you'll see this getting quoted everywhere. If I talk about, yeah, can you see this? Which the browse of, which they browse at height most. If I talk about, that is one of the excerpts which is available in the stuff. What realization do you make from this, guys? What do you understand? कि हो क्या रहा है इधर? Did you all observe what I'm talking about here? Right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. So what kind of observation can be made here?
Same like with the model which is already seen that document.
Right.
So when we are asking that information, it is picking the same after whatever it is there. It is picking the same
Exactly.
from the document.
Exactly. The whole point of talking about here is very nicely said, sir. Right? If I talk about, right, you can see the context there, right? If I talk about the overall context, whichever we are talking about or referring to, right? It most of the things, right? It gets as it is to talk about whatever it has seen so far in the context there, if I talk about, right? So, and I think you can understand one thing, this kind of muscle memory, right? So it basically recalls the training data which it has been trained on, right? If I talk about, right? So it basically recalls, it has a muscle memory of whatever it has been trained on, and that thing gets directly portrayed on whenever you try to talk about in the context here. You got it, right? So, and the sources which it trusts the most, right, get cited more often, guys. Okay, so I hope that's particularly understandable. You can take any other stuff, right? Any other passage, maybe if I talk about, maybe I'm not sure whether if this particular page would have been part of it, right? You will be able to see the excerpts from there as well. अरे यार, ये तो खुले ना तब नहीं, I'm not. I'll probably take uh I'm just taking axia or whatever that plant is, right? If I talk about, right? And let me take this plant, okay? I have this, right? Indian Ocean, whatever, right? If I talk about, let me copy this and maybe paste this up here, right? And ask it to complete, right? If I talk about, right? Are thorny, and it shows few of the things here, right? So if I talk about, right, in the context here, right, more or less you would be observe, like if you carefully observe the way it has been. So I think this particular page has been updated. You can see that the last page was last updated on 8th August. So 2025. So maybe it contains the older information which gets to the stuff if you talk about, right? So I think more or less you get the idea about what is going on in this context, right? So it takes the sites which are more trustworthy and tries to just simulate whatever is written in the context there, right? So I hope that's particularly clear for everyone. Okay. Now I ask a very maybe a generic question. Okay. So suppose I want to know some factual information, right? If I talk about, let's say I ask the question as why is space black? Okay. I ask this random question if I talk about, right? And let's you can see here, guys. Okay. To one question, it asks further more questions. Okay, why does time have a direction? Why do we remember the past, and so on and so forth, right? You can see the context here, right? Second law of thermodynamics and stuff, right? I mean, nowhere it talks about in the context of why is actually space black, right? The question which I'm trying to ask. Okay, so that is what you talk about in the context of a let me close this off, right? If I talk about, let's do that, close this, and close this. I hope everyone got the overall understanding of how the base model behaves. Okay. Now, in contrary, let me click on the next one. I'll share this link as well. Okay, with you. Yesterday, I shared it for the base model. Let me share the link for this one here. Okay. Yeah. So, guys, I have shared the actual Llama 3.1. You can see here, right? On the control bar, you have this Llama 3.1 405B parameter. A billion parameter model. Okay. It is the same if I talk about in the context here, whatever you see here in the stuff, but it is now trained. Okay. So now let's repeat the set of questions which we did earlier, right? So to begin with, and you can even see the interface changed as well. Okay, if I talk about, like, let's see what is 2 plus 2. What do you expect now, guys? What do you
Change the
expect?
number of tokens, max
Yeah, sir.
tokens.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I don't want to waste the number of tokens. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. So, what do you expect it to answer, guys? Now, you see that that was a base model, and this is not a base model. You don't see the word base there, right? This is the same model, by the way. Okay. What do you expect to for it to do now? Can anybody guess here?
Maybe this time it may give the correct, proper answer.
Okay, very nicely said, sir. Let's try it. Okay. Yeah, look at this. Very crisp, short, and very straightforward said. And did you observe one more thing here, that just like how sir said as well, right? Maximum number of tokens, I set it as 128, right? It could have directly gone through all 128 iterations, but it stopped after giving the answer, right? You observed, everyone observed that particular stuff, right? If you talk about, right? Now, does it remotely makes sense that same model which you saw just now here, right, it is actually the same model, but it has been just some tuning has been done, and it shows us the correct answer in the context. It has not been retrained, by the way, just to give you a context there, right? It has not been retrained, and I'll prove that point to you, that it has not been completely retrained. Okay, in just few moments from now. Okay, you see that it gives me 2 plus 2 4, right? If I talk about, and let me run it again. Okay, if I talk about, let's do that again. Okay, 2 plus 2 is 4, right? Let me increase the temperature to get some nice creative answers. Let's see if it can find any creative answers. It's a very trivial question. It may not be able to, but yeah, it still completes it as 2 plus 2. I think n number of times, even if you run it, it's still going to give you the same. If I talk about, I see a pattern here. It at least give it a try, saying that I see a pattern here, right? If I talk about in the context, right? So hopefully you understand here that even after so many number of iterations, right, it retains its stuff. If I talk about, right, now, let's come back to the question which I asked, right? Maybe 10 must recommended places to visit in India. What do you expect now, guys? What do you expect now to happen? One? सब लोग सो गए क्या?
No, why 10
No,
best
no.
places directly
Yeah.
you will get.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, sir. Most likely, if I talk about, and look at the way it is presenting. And guys, I think you can understand why did it stop. Everyone, can anybody justify me why it stopped? Why did it not give me 10?
128 tokens.
Yeah,
128
exactly.
tokens. Yeah.
Precisely said. Awesomely said. So if I increase the number of tokens, you will see more number of places. And this is now, what do you say, well, more organized, right? If I talk about the way we just talked about in the context there, right? If I look into the aspect, right? So same way, if I talk about, right, what is the capital of India? Say, let's have a look. You can see, right? It stops the moment you find, it gives the answer which is required, and then it terminates automatically there, right? If I talk about in the context there, right? So more or less, I mean, even if I talk about, right, even if I run a few more iterations in the context, right? So you can see that it gives us what do you say, the answer to whatever we are requiring in the context there, right? So if I talk about in that manner, right? So I asked also the question, why is space black? Okay, earlier, and let's run it. Okay, you can see, guys. Okay, it has a nice tint of answer, right? Space appears black because it is essentially empty with very few objects. Does it? I mean, I say, guys, that does it even remotely make sense? I'm saying that the model just which was pathetically performing earlier, okay, it is the same model which is giving you this output here, just that you have done some little bit tweaking to it. Okay, it doesn't make I mean, remotely doesn't make any sense if I talk about, right? But this is actually the case. Okay, so if I talk about, let's move forward and discuss about few more things in the context, right? I will come to it, okay, because that is our phase 2, okay, which we will discuss about. Okay, but you saw, right, how the base model versus the chat model, right, is different, right? So I think everyone can understand one more thing, that GPT, when it was created, the original GPT, if I talked about, meaning GPT base, would be significantly worse when it comes to GPT refined, or GPT's instruct model, or the one which you see here, or chat GPT. That's why it is called as, you have, what do you say? That's why you have that word chat GPT in what do you say, in front of it. It is a chat model, or it is a, what you say, instruct model, meaning it has been instruction fine tuned basically. Okay, so we'll see that. Okay, but I hope everyone understood the context here, right? You saw how the thing works, right? Okay, I will tell you about this few seconds after. Okay, just give me 1 second, a few things to talk about, right? Now look at this, guys. Okay. um you see here, okay, I told you that that's why the next slide is named as internet dreamer, that because these guys, right, the base model, right, I have what we have discussed about, you can say that they dream internet. I mean, they don't create anything, right? What they have is their muscle memory has that what you say, context about whatever it has learned, whatever it has, so what it does is just mimic it. So it's like a parrot mimicking the stuff, right? If you talk about, right? So in the context, the so base model don't understand, they just simulate. Okay, so trained on massive internet text, they act like statistical internet document generators more than reasoning agents. They don't reason. Okay, the base model does not have the capacity to reason. Okay, so mental traits you can see, but you should understand, guys. Okay, there is a huge difference in saying that they don't have the capacity to reason, but versus they don't have the knowledge. They have vast amount of knowledge. It's just that we haven't tuned it properly so that it can give you what you desire. Is it understandable, guys? समझ में आ रहा है सबको? Yes, no, maybe. What I'm talking about, right? Uh, are we all there, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect, sir. Thank you so much. So the current mental state or mental traits is they are stochastic or basically randomized. If I talk about, you saw, right, the moment that whenever I used to run that same prompt again and again, right, I'm talking about the mental trait of the base model, right? If I talk about, right, it gives stochastic responses, right? If I talk about like 2 plus 2, sometimes it gives a paragraph, right? Sometimes it does the trick, and the moment you ask specific, right? It's so basically it is completely randomized in the context there. Okay, so I mean regurgitative. I very, what you say. I don't know how to pronounce it. Please don't mind about that, guys. So they recall in training text, which you saw, right? I showed you that passage from Giraffe, right? Which you saw that it actually completes it, right? So basically, they act as base models, act like a feature which we all know about, right? I can call it as autocomplete. They act as autocomplete feature. Okay, so just like how you use it on WhatsApp and stuff, right? They act as autocomplete feature, okay? Nothing interesting about it, okay? Now, parameters, those parameters are nothing but they are in the form of compressed knowledge, and that's what you saw, right? That a few of the portions were exactly represented, and then the moment it finds something else, right, it gets deviated away from there. Okay, so that's the whole point, right? Prompt table, right? You can basically do this few short or zero short task. I will talk about that. Okay, that's what I want to emphasize on. Okay, and internet style echo, meaning it imitates, not invents, right? Meaning it just mimics but does not invent information, right? Everyone agrees to these 5 points, but apart from prompt table, right? Did we all get these five four other 4 points? Is it understandable? Yes, no, maybe, guys? Yes.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
For it. Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much, sir. So now let me go back here. Okay, where was it? Yeah, so this was, you saw that it is words in the context which we described above, right? If I talk about now, suppose I ask the question, give me the, what do you say, Hindi conversion of the word. You saw that in my presentation earlier. I want to convert the word sun in Hindi. Okay, if I talk about, I'm asking that. Okay, let's see if I talk about. You can see here, guys. Okay, it shows quite a few things here, right? Aurora, goddess, and stuff, but it hasn't done the actual thing which I'm talking about, right? Okay, that's what you talk about in the context of, like, it even says Suryodaya, but that is sun rising. Sun is Surya, right? It should say Surya, right? If I talk about, right, in the context, right? Now, what I mean here, okay, the very first kind of prompt, if I talk about, right, which we talk about, right, a few short prompt, which we'll talk about. On the right hand side, there is an example here. You see, in English, we have cat here, okay? Hindi, we have Billy and stuff, right? I take this excerpt from here, okay? And let me go back here. Let's go to our base model, okay? And let's ask it now, what do you think will happen, guys? What is your general understanding about what is going to happen? Anybody? What, you see this base model here, okay? And I've written this. What is the general idea that will happen? Guys, are they? I mean, where are the others? I don't know where they have gone.
I'm
But
here only.
yeah, sir. I know, sir. You are here. I'm not sure about others.
He,
Yeah,
I'm also here.
yeah, sir. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. Is it boring,
Yeah,
guys?
maybe we have
Is it
given
boring, by the way?
no, not at all.
Yeah, sir. Tell me, sir. Go
We
ahead.
have given the question and answer like a few short prompt.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
Maybe we may get Surya here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's
As
do
per
that.
the example that given. ये क्या है? सूरज,
हाँ sir.
चंद्रमा,
Yeah. Sir,
पानी.
let's see, sir, what it has actually done. Okay. You saw earlier, right? English cat, Hindi Billy, it did that, right? Until this, we were correct, right? You see English sun and Hindi mein it shows us Suraj. So it is, you should see one thing here, that it is giving us the output. But I told you, right? A base model does not know when to stop. You got it. You got it right, sir. So it gives some random shit here, okay, and it gives the correct stuff. By the way, if you compare it, okay, you will see that it is giving you the correct answer. Do you all agree with that, right? Is it correct? Can you tally it, everyone?
Yes,
Did you
yes, it is
observe one thing,
correct.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
river, nadi,
exactly.
mountain,
Exactly.
pahad.
एग्जैक्टली अब मैं अगर इसी में मैंने अगर मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ टोकन्स आई वुड हैव टेकन लेट्स से 4 or maybe 5, I think. Okay, if I talk about, right, and let me take this guy here, let me copy it and maybe paste it here. Okay, uh Okay, I have this, right? I've taken maximum number of tokens as 5. And let me just run this again. Can you see this, guys? Okay. The idea here is pretty straightforward, okay? That it is not able to stop itself. Why? Why? For a very simple reason, okay? It does not know to stop, okay? In the phase 2, we are going to introduce something called as stopping tokens, start and stop tokens, through which the model understands that now you have to stop. Do you get it, guys? Is it understandable? सबको समझ में आ रहा है जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ? Okay, perfect. Perfect. I think more or less this, but you see that this raw model, it's not that bad enough, right? So given enough context, right? Given so did you see how well it picked up? Did you see the learning curve of this model? It's only because it has been trained on a huge data set. It is able to understand that you are requiring this just with maybe here you just gave 1 2 3 I mean you just gave 2 examples, right? Or basically there is nothing called as two-shot prompting. I mean, generally they use the word two-shot prompting, which means that you give 2 examples and then you ask a question. Did you get it, guys? Okay, so that is what is meant by it. Okay, so when I say two-shot or few shot means if the model, so I think you can understand, guys. Okay, this is a very big model because it has 405 billion parameters, right? So it has a lot of world knowledge, and that's why it picks up instantaneously. Okay, but there are some models, I will show you some shorter models, maybe who are having probably you saw that nano GPT. Okay, I showed you that LLM visualizer में आपको मैंने nano GPT, अगर ये सच में exist करता, if it existed in real time, okay, it might be possible that it might not understand with even 2 or 3 examples. You might have to give it few more examples to make it understand, okay, I'm talking about this. Why? Because nano GPT has very less parameters and it cannot be trained on a lot of even if it has been trained on a very large amount of data, just because of what you say things getting cramped up in one particular space, it does not get flexibility to represent that world knowledge in different dimensions. Do you get it, guys? Okay, I hope it's particularly understandable by everyone. Okay, so that is what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so you might have to give more examples in that context, right? And there are there is often even a possibility that even if you give 10 20s or 30s of examples, it might not even understand at all. In that case, the GPT model which you may have created, right, cannot be acted as an assistant, by the way. Okay, in the context, unless and until it is fine-tuned, it cannot be act as a assistant. Okay, I hope that's particularly understandable in the context. Yeah, someone unmuted. Any questions, guys? Is there any question by anyone? All good? Is it understandable? Everyone?
Yes.
Am I? Okay, perfect. So I think more or less everyone understands. Okay, so the idea here is the more the prompt you give, okay, the better the model understands and it becomes a reflection of what you see, right? And you saw, right, we took just five, we tried to generate just 5 tokens, and it is this worst model was able to even generate what we are looking forward to, right? If I talk about, right, so hopefully that is particularly understandable by everyone. Let's move forward. Okay, and maybe talk about few more important things if I talk about, right? So you see, right, so in style, if I talk about, right, they act as internet document simulator, if I talk about, right? So the most accurate mental model of the base model is this, right? They are just trying to guess what an internet document might say next. That's all they are doing. Okay, that is why we come to phase 2, the post training on supervised fine tuning, or SFT, if I talk about, right? Guys, let me tell you one more thing. Did you see one thing, one very alarming fact? This was a chat model. Okay, did you see how just by giving 2 examples, it was able to understand, this big of a parameter model was able to understand easily that what should come next? Okay, and that is why creating this model, okay, creating this big of a model for pre-training purposes might take you months, okay? But on the other hand, for supervised fine tuning or SFT, it might only take you 2 to 3 hours, guys. If you really want to make it fine tuned in the context of, okay, you want to have some kind of a start sequence and stuff. I'll tell you what I mean by that, okay? You see a nice little bit of a diagram in the context here. What happens in the context here? By the way, there's DeepSeek, okay? I'll also key talk we'll have about DeepSeek as well, okay? And personally, it's one of my favorites if I talk about, but people think it's Chinese, but you'll see the capabilities it has if I talk about the way it represents the knowledge, okay? But anyways, if I talk about, right? The idea here is pretty straightforward, right? What you do is you are freezing the major chunk of the LLM, okay? That means when you train it again, right? This is also fine tuning is like training only, okay? But in the context here, you see that most of the things you keep frozen, okay? You only keep some, you only expose some of the stuff, okay? So that they understand, because you don't want to disturb the world knowledge, you don't want to change its representation, okay? Whatever it has learned, this thing cannot teach it, okay? Everyone should understand here, the purpose of this tuning is not to teach the model that about the knowledge. The purpose is simply to say that this is how you should represent. Did you get the context, what we are trying to solve in this context here, right? Everyone got it, guys? Yes, no, maybe? Everyone?
Yeah,
सब
yeah.
कोई perfect,
Yes,
perfect, sir. Awesome. So there's this, how do we do that? You have trainable LoRa, that's low rank adapters. So sir has also mentioned about those adapters in the context there, right? If I talk about how the things happen in the context. But the idea here is pretty simple. You take two lower rank matrices, and then lower rank matrices, I think you can understand, guys, okay? Lower dimensional matrices, if I talk about. In a very shorter term, if I talk about, that is a lower dimension matrix. You fine tune it, and then obviously that they are matrices, they will have some values, right? Then you choose the best among it, whatever checkpoint. Does everyone know about what a checkpoint means? People who play games know about what checkpoint means. पता है आपको checkpoint क्या होता है? People who play maybe PC games and stuff, they know what checkpoint actually is. Any idea? Anyone would like to say what is a checkpoint? Yes, no, maybe?
It's a kind of saving point.
Yeah, exactly, sir. It is kind of like a saving point. So you create many saving points of these trainable LoRa, right? You get those matrices. You find out, okay, among those checkpoints, which of it gave the best suitable answer, meaning was really nice enough, crisp enough, right? Whatever you are requiring, that gets finally chosen, and then you deploy it, right? I hope you can understand the context there. That's the whole point of it, right? If I talk about, right? So, and then obviously you fine tune it, and then you on the static data, right? If I talk about now, let's look at few more things. Okay, let me come back here, right? So the next idea here is obviously what do you do in these process, right? Under phase 2, the very first thing, you want to teach the robot how to talk, okay? Talk back to you, okay? Because you saw that this has no sense. Now it had a little bit, right? But still, it does not have any sense of how to talk back, okay? So what is the way to converse, right? It does not know about it. A raw model does not know about it, or a base model does not know about it, okay? So how do you do that, right? You generate conversation, right? So for that, I will again go back to, you remember tick tokenizer, right? Okay. Now, if I talk about, I come back to tick tokenizer, okay? Now, you remember, right, earlier, I told you about that base token, which we took, right? CL100K base, right? Which, divided it into what you say, um, uh, chunks, and then you saw how tokens are created and stuff, right? If I talk about now, let's go to this imaginary one. That's the GPT-O 4O model. If I talk about, right, how did that model learn to what you say converse, right? So in that case, you see here, right, on the left hand side, guys, you see a system prompt. If you click on it, there are three things. a user, a system, and an assistant. Okay. So if I talk about, right, the system prompt is something which you give to the system to how to generate something in the context, right? To give you an example, guys, okay, you see here, can you see it here, guys? There is a portion here which says system prompt, okay? You see it here, okay? You see this system prompt. Let me show you. You saw that I asked the question, why is space black, right? Here, right? Without giving any system prompt, okay? You see that it gives a nice answer, right? Look at the quality of answer here. Now, I'll introduce a system prompt here. I'm writing my prompt here. On the system prompt, I will say that give the answer, or maybe I'll say explain it to a 5-year-old kid. Okay, you see that why is space black comes with this answer. Okay, okay, I gave the system prompt that system take this as the prompt. Okay, I mean the take this as the context. Okay, and then answer the question called why is space black. What do you expect now, guys? Can you tell me? What do you expect to happen now? Anybody?
It's possibly gonna behave like the explanation for the 5-year-old kid.
Correct.
Like it's the
Exactly, sir.
personality and its constraints are completely changed now.
Exactly.
And I,
Exactly.
as well
And
as I guess the temperature is also like about 1.46, so
huh.
it's gonna
Yeah, yeah. I
help
mean,
it for
yeah.
being more creative for
Yeah,
that 5-year-old.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even, exactly. The temperature factor will make it more creative in the context. Very
Yeah, yeah.
nicely said. Yeah, exactly. So, but the idea here is you will get an explanation which is digestible by a 5-year-old. Let's see what you get. Okay. I asked the question. Look at this, guys. Look at the quality of response here. So space looks black because it's like a giant, big, empty room with no walls, no floor, and no lights. If you talk about, right? So imagine you are in a room with no windows and no lights. It's dark, right? So I mean, you can see the kind of what do you say, a response which you get here. Let me increase the temperature a bit, just like how sir said, right? Let's make it a little more creative for the little guy who is going to look into this explanation, maybe. Okay. So if I talk about, look at this. Space is like super big, super dark room, right? If I talk about, right, doesn't have walls and stuff, right? So, I mean, the whole idea here is, right, you have many number of iterations which you are going to talk about, right? But it makes the thing, I think you can now understand, you are asking the system to act like someone. Do you get it? That actor critic or the actor personality which you are trying to give it is given to a system prompt. Do you get it, guys? Yes, no, maybe everyone, others, especially. Is it understandable by
Yes,
everyone?
yes.
Perfect, perfect. So the system prompt acts like that. And that is what you see here in the context of a tokenizer, right? You can, by default, in GPT-4, when you go to chat GPT, you don't see that system prompt. If I go to, let's say, what do you say? Chat GPT, if I say, right, in the context, right, you can see here, right, you don't see any kind of a system prompt unless and until you go to the developer options. I don't know, you can actually go to that, okay, and you can even regulate temperatures and stuff. So इस केस में आप लोग क्या करते हो पता, you if you want that system prompt to be part of it, तो आप इसी में ही direct लिख देते हो, right? So I will say imagine explaining the concept to a 5-year-old. It would be more better if you format the prompt. Let's say system, okay. I say system, okay, and I say my whatever. Who is it? By the way, I think it is called user. Yeah, I say something like that. Like now, I say y is space black. Okay, now, if you understand the context, you can see here that, okay, the way you write it here, okay, I mean, it's the way you look into, right? If I talk about, right, that system prompt can be inbuilt here without having to go to that explicitly. Is it clear for everyone? Is it understandable? Even, ChatGPT is more advanced enough that even if you don't write system and user, it's still, you say that, imagine explaining the concept to a 5-year old, right? Or you say, why is space black? Imagine explaining it to a 5-year old. If you do that, it still does the trick for you. Okay. Is it understandable? But generally, the core heuristics which you try to ask it, right, is kept on that system prompt. Is it understandable by everyone? Yes, no, maybe. Everyone got it? सबको समझ में आ गया? Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much, sir. All right. So here you have, a simple stuff which says you are a helpful assistant, and let's do this. Okay, I have a set of conversation formats. Let me take this here. Okay, so I'll probably add some message. Maybe user ने ये पूछा है, ठीक है, और उसके बाद assistant ने ये answer किया है. Let me just take this up here. Okay, and maybe add a message, add one more message here. I'll just keep this. Okay, you can create your own conversations, by the way. Okay, it's all up to you. Okay, just to save some time and stuff, right? I want to much more explain the stuff to you. That's why I'm just doing this, but you can create your own set of conversation. Does not matter in the context. So I have these set of conversation, right? I'm saying the system that act like a helpful assistant, okay, or you are a helpful assistant. Then I'm saying user, right? User asks the question, what is the weather in Rome, right? If I talk about assistant says that it is currently sunny and so forth, right? User gives, can you suggest some visits to, nearby places to visit? Assistant says so and so forth, right? You see a nice, healthy conversation. You got it, right? This is the, this is what you provide as the training data. I'll show you next how this is done, okay? But let's see what is happening here. The actual message has been further encoded in this manner, okay? Up until now, okay? Let me tell you one thing. Llama 3.1405 base model, okay, does not know about tokens. Can you see there are some special tokens here? It says I am start, right? If I talk about, right, there's if I talk about, right, that is a I'm start token which we talk about, right? In the context here it is referred to as an imaginary monologue. This is from what do you say, GPT model, right? They call it as, for some reason they call it as imaginary monologue. I am stands for that, okay? I am start meaning you start the conversation, and who is starting the conversation? Suppose you have the system, right? So there is particularly there, right? Then I am sep. If I talk about, you can see here it says separator. You understand, right? It is acting as a separator. Okay. Then you are saying that you are a helpful assistant. Then there is I am end, meaning this thing ended. Okay. That is a full stop after that. Okay. Then you start again, right? There is like this time you are doing it for user. Okay. You have I am sep, and there is the answer. There is the question here from the user side. So when you provide any to what I mean to say, when you provide any question like this, why is space black? Suppose to chat GPT, it will say I am start, and it is going to say why is space black. It will have a special token called user, okay, and say with a I am sep, and then there will be this, right? And then it will be having I am end, or start. If when you started it, you are going to end it. Did you get it, guys? Okay. It is going to have that format, okay, appended to it, okay, for contextual understanding. Where is it? Yeah. So you see, I am SEP here and things like this, right? For the assistant also, you have this. It is currently sunny in Rome and stuff and so forth, right? Some set of things which we are talking about, right? Now look at this, guys. These are actually tokens. These were not part of the training set, by the way. Please remember this. These were not part of the pre-training set. These come during the time of supervised fine tuning. That is why you have the word called supervised. It is happening under the supervision of a person, or the person who has created that monologue and stuff, if I talk about. Did you get it, guys? Okay. And look at this here. Can you see here? This is a special token called, you can see the token number there. Okay. When I hover over there, I am start is 200264. You can see system, right? It shows me 17360 or something in those lines, right? You have this, right? I am SEPT again. Can you see this? 64 and 66. Can you see this? The numbers are very close to each other, meaning they have been created afterwards. These tokens have been created afterwards a bit. Okay. So if you see the start, right? You see this. I'll go to that same. Can you see this here? 200,265, 264, 266, 265. Can you see this here? Right? I am start, I am end, and I am set or whatever, right? You talk about. Did you get the context here? You introduce these things during the time of fine tuning. Is it understandable? Yes or no? It is a set of things like this. Do you get it? These are special tokens. And there is also, you can see, system token has been generated in the context there, right? If I talk about, right? And if I talk about user, can you see this? The user token, right? That's particularly acting as a token in this context, right? But you can see here, they are existing within this bracket, right? If I talk about, right? So I think more or less, is it understandable what is happening? How does ChatGPT actually sees it? It is like this. Is it understandable? Yes, no. Everyone understood the concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect, sir. Thank you so much. So I think more or less you understand the context here. So these tokens are introduced during the time of supervised fine tuning. Okay. तो ये जब आप conversation लिखते हो, okay, they get it's stuff. And I think now you can I proved that point to you earlier as well, right? This guy, the base model does not have these. It does not know stop, and that's why you saw, right? Whenever you use this, right, I had to deliberately stop it by reducing the token size. Okay, but if I increased it, right, you saw what happened, right? So if I take the token size as maybe 50 in the context here and try to regenerate it here, if I talk about, let me take this again. Okay. Obviously, it does not know when to stop. Okay. So in the context here, bhai, kya ho gaya ab isko? Hindi. Okay. Let's take this. Are you serious? Isko, let me refresh it one last time and reduce it to 50. Let me do this here. Come on. Hindi. Yeah, can you see this here? It keeps on continuing forward, right? Because it does not know when to stop. Wow, because it has never seen in its training data. Obviously, the idea is not to stop it. The idea was initially to keep growing its knowledge. Okay, now it has tons of knowledge of its own. Okay, now let's come back. Okay, so I think more or less you all understood, right? That how the conversation is happened, right? So आप क्या करते हो during the time of supervised fine tuning? You create a data set like this. Do you get it? You create a data set called system having so and so. I mean, having let's say user assistant. Okay, आपको ये data set देना पड़ता है, and then it understands. तो आप जो expose करके रखते हो, whatever layers you try to expose, right? That gets learnt up in the context there. Okay, so that is what I'm talking about here, right? So after base model training, we introduce structured dialogue data. Can you see this here? Structured dialogue data, human to human or human AI conversation, SFT ke saath and stuff, right? If I talk about now, let's see on the, this idea came in the very first place. This idea came up to these guys from GPT. I mean, the people from what do you say, OpenAI, right? If I talk about, right? So they published this particular paper, right, which appear which was in, you can see 2022, 4th of March 2022. If I talk about, let me also share the paper with you, okay, for reference. You can have a look at it at your own time. I'll just go through the little bit of a context here, right? Look at this, guys, okay? By the way, how many of us know, we all many of us use Chat GPT, okay? Right? Chat GPT has another variant of its own, okay? If I talk about, right, let me go to that, okay? Chat GPT, if I go to Google, okay, let me go to Chat GPT, okay, and I'm going to the actual OpenAI page for Chat GPT, okay, introducing Chat GPT. You can click on this to go to Chat GPT, but they have a very interesting thing. I'll iterate here, guys. Okay, look at this. If you go down a little bit here, okay, Chat GPT is a sibling model to something called as instruct GPT, which is trained to follow an instruction as a prompt and provide a detailed response. If you look into, what is the beauty of instruct GPT? If I talk about, right, you saw that chat GPT has been trained on, like, chat GPT 3 has been trained on 175 billion parameters, right? On the other hand, right, let me show you how powerful is this instruct GPT. Okay, if I talk about, let me show it to you. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? This is their more detailed documentation. But you can see here, we trained this module using reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF, thing which I'll discuss about in the phase 3 as well, a little bit. Okay. So same methods as that of instruct GPT, with a slight difference in the context of how the collection step. But this is a very smaller model in contrast to chat GPT. It is a very small model. And how small? I think it will be available in the paper here. If I go to here, look at this, guys. It is actually a 1.3 billion parameter model only. Compare it with a 175 billion parameter. This guy here, right? Actually, it is, I mean, if I talk about instruct GPT, it is a 1.3 billion parameter only. It is a very small model, but it outperforms. Can you see this? It outperforms all the GPT standard models, because instruct GPT has used something called as reinforcement learning using human feedback, and the responses which you get from instruct GPT is way more crisp to human like, compared to, I mean, if I talk about in the context of the a chat GPT, if I talk about, right? So you'll probably have a look at it, okay, whenever you have the flexibility of looking into the context, right? Can you see this here? It says 1.3 billion parameter instruct GPT model, okay? It actually outperforms it. And I think somewhere, if I go to instruct GPT site, I think more or less I'll go down. Somewhere it is there. Compare. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Look at this here. Normal GPT model of 175 billion parameter has toxicity. Is toxicity meaning how toxic the language is more. If I talk about, is more for GPT. Compare it with instruct GPT, and I think you can understand, guys, right? The fundamental idea is, it should, any GPT model, I mean, any of these large language model should be less toxic in terms of its responses which it gives. Truthfulness. Can you see this? Compare GPT with instruct GPT. Can you see it has more truthfulness, less toxic? It's a good parameter. Hallucinations. I'll come to this parameter in jiffy in a few moment. Okay, you will see how hallucination plays a lot of important role in the context which we are describing here. For a GPT model, you can see it hallucinates a lot. Okay, but basically hallucination is also called as factuality. I will tell you in due time, in a few seconds, if I talk about in the context. It is there in one of the slides. Okay, and then you see instruct GPT, it has less hallucinations, if I talk about, right? So customer assistant appropriate, meaning whatever you give as chat, whatever you are asking as a chat to it, look at the performance of GPT, compare it with instruct GPT. Considering that it is just a 1.4 billion parameter model, compare it to 175 billion parameter, that is 1.5, 100 times, more than 100 times that of it. You can see that instruct GPT outperforms in all of these, right? So I think more or less you can understand what is going on at the end. By the way, this instruct GPT has been trained on something special called as the PPO mechanism, or proximal policy optimization, which is a classic technique which is used in reinforcement learning human feedback form. Okay, we'll little bit talk about it. Okay, wherein talk because in the current standards, the way the world is going on, right? Using reinforcement learning, there have been considerable developments which have been seen, which even humans can't think of. If you talk about, right? The breakthrough came with that classic game of Go. I think it's like a chess which you play off, right? If I talk about, and it was able to beat the best player of its time. If I talk about, right, in the context, because it is not human who has trained it, but it finds a path itself and gets better and better. Do you get it, guys? That is why that's why you call it as reinforced learning, okay? Meaning you don't, as a human, you don't do it, but RLHF is with human, okay? I'm not talking reinforcement learning and RLHF, both are different things, by the way, okay? But reinforcement learning, the way we talk about it, is the fundamental model which has given considerable number of stuff. You see this PPO, PTX, if I talk about, right? PPO stands for that proximal policy optimization, one of the classic stuff which we use in reinforcement learning in the context there, if I talk about, right? With the human feedback, if I talk about, right? So now, why have I come to this page or paper, right? Let me tell you, you saw, right? When we visited Tick Tokenizer, right? I told you that you create something like a conversation between user and a assistant, okay? So, in order to do that, right? In this paper, right? If I talk about, if I go down a little bit, right? Can you see this here, right? They focused on creating such kind of conversations, okay? So people from OpenAI, right? They asked many human annotators, okay? Look at this. You ask a question and there is an answer to it, okay? You ask a question. I mean, okay, it says some answer to it or whatever it gives you in the context, right? If I talk about, right, who is so and so, right? It gives the answer to it, right? If I talk about, right? So basically the idea is, and write a paragraph, if I talk about, and you give an answer. Human writes it. Human does the labor, if I talk about, initially for a few times, okay? If I talk about, that's what the context is, okay? And by the way, who are these human laborers? If I talk about, right? If I go down a little bit, you can see these demographics as well, by the way. You can see, this the people, the experts here, they have to, what do you say? They take it. It's a full-time job for them. Okay, so they are asked to. I mean, places like I mean, freelancing platforms like Upwork. If I talk about, have you guys heard about Upwork, Fiverr? आपको पता है ये freelancing websites के ऊपर? Have you heard about those, guys? Anyone there?
No, Soumya, for me, no.
Okay, okay. So
Oh no.
Yes,
freelance.
I have. It's
Okay,
a
okay.
Fiverr,
हाँ,
Fiverr is there, freelancer is
हाँ.
there.
हाँ, फ्रीलांसिंग तो पता है ना सर आपको? मतलब फ्रीलांसिंग क्या होता है? सो फ्रीलांसिंग आर दोज पीपल, या सर, राजा सर, फ्रीलांसिंग, you know about who's a freelancer?
Yes, somewhat I know. You can
Yeah,
explain. That
yeah,
means
right.
to do some work for like individually.
Exactly. You're right. So he doesn't work for a company. As and when the project comes up, right, he takes it up and gets paid for it, right? So maybe there would be a freelancer who says, I'm an artist, or maybe a sound creator or sound composer, right? Or maybe someone who likes to, what do you say, do projects for the companies and stuff. But he's not officially affiliated to a company. So he's a freelance. He does the project at his own time. Okay. So that's the whole point. So the idea is, and the platform which I said, right, like Upwork, right? This is a, what you say, freelance platform. Okay. So here you can hire freelancers. Okay. So freelancer.com is also a platform like that. Okay. And Fiverr is also Fiverr, I believe, whatever that is. Yeah. Fiverr. It is also freelance platform. You can see, right? So these guys, what you talk about, right? They people from OpenAI, right? They hired freelancers, okay, from these sites, okay, to create these conversations. It is a full-time job, okay. And the interesting aspect, you can see they have some parameters कि आप जो लिखोगे, okay, it should be, they have few parameters that whatever you give as conversation, तो आप उन्हीं को बोलते हैं कि आप क्वेश्चन भी लिखो और उसका आंसर भी दो कि एक्चुअली होना कैसे चाहिए, okay. So but you should have that, those parameters should be followed. Like the assistant, I mean, whatever you write, it should be helpful. It should be whatever you give in the context there. It should be truthful, right? If there is some existing document, right, summarization and everything, right? तो आप उसको review करो और उसके बाद उसको be truthful about it, okay? In the context, right? It should be harmless, like I mean, it should not. Sometimes in आपने देखा होगा कुछ समय पहले the AI became autonomous and stuff, right? वो कुछ भी comment करने लग रहा था. We saw that in Twitter happening, right? If I talk about that was a harmful AI, right? If I talk about, right? But it should be, what do you say, harmless in principle, if I talk about, right? So I think you can understand the context here, right? There's the toxicity there. I mean, they do that, guys. Look at this, and you measure it in the context here. Okay, so you provide those ratings. Okay, that zero means, if I talk about that, not toxic at all, or meaning highly ambiguous, unambiguous, if I talk about, right? So that's how you talk about. So they have big instructions which they have to follow in order to so if they create conversations, or if a conversation is given, right, then you rate those conversations. So this is basically a rating task. You are rating the chat which has been generated from AI, whether it is helpful, whether it is truthful, whether it is harmless, right? Based on those parameters, you are rating them, okay? And based on that, you do that, okay? So I think more or less, and why do I say all of that? It's because you can see this is how a ranking pattern looks like, maybe in the context there, right? So best to the worst, okay? Rank 1 to 5, if I talk about, right? So you rank it, whatever you give it, right? And you can see here, guys, right? The gender identification, most of the people who were the labelers, right? These guys were labelers, right? Because they labeled whatever conversation data was given from chat gpt side to them, okay? These human laborers, 50% were there male, and 45% roughly around were female and stuff. The demographics is shown here, right? If you talk about, so it was a nice, this also contributes to a huge success as well, okay? Because you see that relative distribution of male and female is there here, right? There is relative distribution of ethnicity as well, right? I mean, it's not like very much like 90% are males and 10% are females and stuff. So you have both the viewpoints, and based on that, you take the inputs from everyone. You got it, right? So that is how you do a experiment, and most of it you can see here that none of the people were from high school, right? So that means whoever has labeled the content knows about who is what he is doing, okay? So high school degree wale 10% the, most of them were like undergrads and master's degree, you can see, right? So you get a overall picture about what is going on in the context there, okay? So more or less, that's what I'm talking about. Guys, it's 11:49. I'm very sorry about it. Let's quickly take up a break in the context here, okay? Maybe for sir, we'll be back at 12 o'clock. Is it fine for everyone? Is it okay for everyone?
Very short, na? 10-minute break.
हाँ हाँ सर. अच्छा, तो सर वही करते हैं.
12,
17 मिनट्स कर देता हूँ सर. आई थिंक ये
हाँ
वाला
सर.
जो टाइमर है ना सर, ठीक है. तो लेट्स बी बैक आफ्टर दैट. तो ऑल राइट. Hello guys. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yes,
Okay.
Soumya.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's move forward. So सब लोग आ गए? Shall we move forward? Yes, everyone. All good. Okay. Thank you, sirs. चलो. So let's move forward. तो मैं आपको बता रहा था before all of this, right? That it is important to create conversations, right? अब conversation क्यों बनाना है? So that you are training now. The second phase is you want the machine to understand, or sorry, the LLM to understand whatever you have created. That what is a conversation? मैं जब question पूछता हूँ, what does that mean? Like how a question should behave. Like you have a question mark, then I mean whatever, right? Then in that case, there are what I mean when you ask a question, how do you respond to that is what is told by the set of conversations which you talk about, right? So उसके लिए हम लोग क्या करते हैं, like chat gpt sorry people at OpenAI, right? What they did is they created the I mean उन्होंने पहले ही they created many number of conversations. What they do, that they prompted the LLM, okay, to give responses, okay, and whatever responses came up, okay, they took those responses and shared it as I mean as things which needs to be labeled by a human labeler, okay. तो और एक प्रॉम्प्ट का दे आई मीन सॉरी एक कॉन्वर्सेशन का मल्टीपल रिस्पॉन्सेज वो लोग जनरेट करते हैं, ताकि it is the human labeler, it is he is easily able to identify which one is really good enough for a conversation style. Is that understood by everyone? सबको समझ में आया? Yes, no, maybe. Everyone got the concept behind that? Yes.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Soumya.
Perfect. So basically, they judge it whether the responses are helpful, whether the LLM has responded in a helpful manner, or was it truthful on the fact side of the things, right? You can see, right? Like for example, it's not totally clear and stuff, right? There are, I mean, in case you are interested to look into कि उन्होंने questionnaire क्या बनाया था, because it is itself a huge set of questionnaires which they created, okay, whether the AI is harmless or not. So ये तो paper में उन्होंने they have ultimately given a few things, okay, but they have created a huge set of instructions. You can see, right? So and based on that they provided instruction कि आपको labeling करना कैसे, and thanks to that now we have the chat GPT being aligned in such a great fashion that it is able to give so many answers without even having to falter to from its own idea, okay. So that's the whole point, okay. तो आप उसमें मैंने आपको last time ये भी दिखाया था what are the demographics, like what age group has been chosen and stuff, right? कौन कहाँ से था and stuff, right? So you see that this is a nice distribution, right? And that is why this has also contributed to huge success of chat GPT, you know, because they included diverse viewpoint, you know, right? ChatGPT can talk in different languages, right? I mean, talk in different languages in the sense that it can understand the actor's critic and stuff, if I talk about, and that's how you talk about in the context there, okay? So labeling is a pretty easy job, right? Rather than writing it down, okay? But you can also write down and give it to them, okay? That's also possible. Meaning you generate your own conversations and then give it to them. But in the context here, which we are referring to, they were asked to label. Okay. So I hope everyone understand it is already created. You just label it on top if I talk about. Okay. So I hope that's clear to everyone. Okay. So more or less, that's what a conversation talks about, like, right? So you can see, right, a conversation format is like, for example, how do I boil an egg? Then assistant says, place so and stuff, right? That is a normal, what do you say, conversation format, which you talk about. Okay. Now, guys, you know, आपने ये कब देखा कि this was released, this paper was released in 2022, right? I showed it to you, right? In the very beginning, you see that 4th March 2022 this was released, if I talk about, right? But ये जो है ना, ये क्लोज डोर के अंदर उन्होंने किया था, मतलब इट वाज नॉट ओपन सोर्स, बहुत से लोगों को पता नहीं था, ये सब चीजें नहीं हुए थे, राइट? तो इसको मिमिक करने के लिए ये जो पेपर, बिकॉज दिस इज अ पब्लिक पेपर विच वाज रिलीज, राइट? अब इनके गाइडलाइंस को फॉलो करके, मीनिंग द सेम काइंड ऑफ गाइडलाइंस, they, you can see here, right? I told you, right? 175 billion GPT-3 despite having 100 times fewer parameters. I'm talking about the instruct model. Okay, so that's what we talked about, right? And instruct model is, it seems, I mean, people preferred the responses from instruct model was way more crisper than what is there for the it is not always, guys, that bigger the better, right? It's sometimes like how you efficiently tune it, okay, how efficiently it handles, okay, that also plays a bigger role, okay? So I think more or less you can understand the context there. So that's why instruct GPT was preferable. You can see 100 times less number of parameters, but still on par with the performance in terms of GPT. I told you yesterday, right? Remember, I told you about optimization is a big challenge, right? But उन्होंने optimize किया उसको, and then they came up with the context there. Okay. Now, अब मैं आपको जो बता रहा था कि the story began like that, right? It started off with Instruct GPT, which was released in 2022. इन्होंने they created a set of parameters and everything, so it happened that way, right? Now, अब उसको क्या किए कि many other people, right, they mimicked that architecture, okay? So one of the most promising one, right, which is a big thing which came up, was open assistant project, okay? And let me go to this paper here, okay? This is the open assistant paper, right? Conversation, can you see? Democratizing large language model alignment. You can see democratizing means like making it free for everyone. It was the way they basically looked into, if the context, if I talk about, right? And they created this, right? However, right, if I talk about, let's look at this, okay? They created this particular corpus, okay? Corpus is like, what do you say? They created it from scratch, by the way, okay? They created a corpus of conversations, okay? So question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. I'll show it to you in just 1 second, okay? How does it look like? You can see here, right? Is this message spam? They're like question and answers, right? Which are given, if I talk about, right? And they also had their own set of rules, okay? That they have to follow and stuff, right? And you can see here, guys, okay? I mean, you can see here, but can you see this, guys? What can you make out of this data here? Look at this distribution. What can you say about it? Contributor demographics may quickly, guys, quickly. I want your answers quickly so that we can. What, looking at this graph, what does this tell you? क्या समझ में आ रहा है इधर? Anyone there?
Male is more contributor than female.
Yeah, exactly. Out of a total contribution from these, so I think the number of participants, they have also mentioned it. You know, they were very public about it. कि मतलब number of participant है क्या? Participants, EANG, participate. I think 200 something participants थे उसमें, okay? If I'm not wrong, यहाँ पर मैंने देखा था in the paper. I'll have to search for it a bit. Meaning number of people who helped in the contribution, okay? That is what I'm trying to look into. यहाँ पर कहीं कहीं इधर you can see their ranking merging and stuff as well. Data collection, I think there should be here somewhere number of participants. Online survey results. यार कहाँ गया भाई? Number of participants. Yeah, look at this. It says here demography of 270 respondents. Okay, so those who actually helped in the survey and stuff, if I talk about, right, you can see male. Out of those 270, you saw that most of them were male. So it's like male. You can say that if you use this, it will be male centric. I mean, you can see a biased mentality towards it, okay, because it has been mostly trained, I mean, on male side of things. So you might any of the open model, if it is using this particular data, right, conversation data, it will be more more male centric. You might guess that, okay, because less number of females participated, right? And that's what happened, right? But if you look into OpenAI, right, you saw the almost equal proportion was there, right? If I talk about, I'm just giving you an example here, okay? There could be different things, right? You can see here, right? Less than high school, maybe kuch bache the, high school maybe the. Then there are, most of them were university degree people, right? If I talk about, right, full-time employee and stuff, part-time and stuff, right? If I talk about, right? So ये सारे चीजें उन्होंने they have made it public. And ये जो data set है, right? Let me click on the data set. By the way, let me also share this link for reference for everyone to what do you say, look into, okay? So you can visit this website for the paper, right? So basically the data which was contained, right? तो वो अलग अलग segment में उन्होंने जो data collect किया था, right? World cloud for 33 topics, different topics which were extracted, right? उसका word cloud you can see, right? So this is probably for quantum theory and stuff, right? You can see universe, particle, state theory and stuff, right? If I talk about different things, right? Use energy, power and stuff, I think relating to some kind of energy related stuff, right? If I talk about again, what do you say, force object, this is again physics related topic. If I talk about, right, consciousness, I think this may be relating to, inclined towards what you say, um क्या नाम है आपका health related I mean mental health and stuff if I talk about, right? So different things, right? Technology, you can see the word cloud here, right? If I talk about, so alag alag genre mein they collected different things if I talk about, and based on that they saw you see this word cloud, okay? So I think more or less you can understand the context here. There, I mean, many things. You can see the interesting thing if you guys are interested enough to look into, right? If I talk about, and let me go back here and go to the data set here, okay? ये जो था paper आपने देखा, इसी का relevant data set, I am going to share this to you as well. ठीक है, ये जो data set है, this data set is not fine web, nothing. It is a data set of conversations, okay? So let me go ahead and share this also with all of you, okay, in case you guys are interested into, and it is hosted in Hugging Face, so you'll be able to have an access to it, okay? You can see here, guys, okay, it contained the split as train and test split, and you can see that there are 84K rows, okay, in training. So, and let's have a sample look at how the data looks like here. Maybe I'll click on validation or something. Maybe I'll go to training back. Okay, look at this here. Okay, so this is how the data set looks like. Can you see here, guys? Okay, role, prompter, assistant, prompter, assistant, prompter, assistant. Can you see this? Okay, so if you look into, let me click on it. Can you write a short introduction about the relevance of the term monopsony in economics? And please use examples related to potential monopsonies in the labor market and cite relevant research, right? For that, there is an answer here. Can you see this? It also has references here, okay? So this has not been generated by AI. This has been written by those 200 and some change humans who helped to create this data set. Do you get it? Understood? समझ में आ रहा है सबको? Yes, no, maybe. Are we all there?
Yes.
Perfect. Now you can see prompter says that now explain it to a dog, right? I mean, meaning a layman, explain it to a layman, right? So you can talk about here, you can see here as monopsony is a market structure in which there is single buyer in the market. So explain it to in a simple language, right? So assistant gives the answer that way, right? So they, these guys are experts, okay? So they review these things, okay? And they even write it, okay? So हो सकता है कि इन्होंने they might have taken context from the chat GPT itself, but usko unhone modify kiya as per the standards which is required by the paper which I just shared here, okay? So I think more or less you all understand, right? So the success of all of this is basically everything which you see here, right? There is a conversation like question and answer, question and answer, question and answer, and when to stop and stuff automatically gets assigned that way, right? If I talk about in the context, right? I hope that's particularly makes sense, right? So you can see here, right? You can see review result, whether it was reviewed or something, deleted false, and rank. Even ranking is also there. Look at this ranking, because it asked, right? कि आप इसको रैंक कैसे करोगे, राइट? लाइक whatever is being given, give it in the form of a rank, right? 0, 1, 2, right? Whether it is helpful, whether it is not, and stuff, right? So synthetic false, can you see this? Synthetic false means that it has not been synthetically generated, okay? It is naturally generated in the context there, okay? So toxicity score and stuff, you can see the context here, right? Whatever it talks about, right? You have a lot of different things which talks about in the context which they collected, okay? And all of it becomes an input for SFT training. Is it understandable, guys? सबको समझ में आ रहा है? यही चीज को हम, और ये देखो आप, if you look into, guys, earlier you saw 30, I mean, what was it? Around 80 terabytes of data, right? But आप इधर देखो इसका, can you see the size of the data set, guys? Look at the size of the data set. It's just over 40 MBs of data, right? It's not even, and you know, that is more than enough to train this entire setup from what you saw as a base model to what you say, something which can really give you nice answers. You got it, right? It is here, the idea is not to teach monopsony, okay? It is not to teach monopsony. And also, if I talk about, right, it is to teach how to answer a particular question. समझ में आया सबको? Yes, no, maybe. Is it clear for all of us? Are we all there? Yes? सबको समझ में आया? Yes, no, maybe. Are we there, guys? कोई है? Okay, perfect. So
Yes,
that's what
yes.
it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, sir. So I think more or less that is understandable. तो ये हम data set बना लिए, right? So we created a data set. तो Instruct GPT ने अपने लिए data set बनाया था, and then they trained their GPT-4 model to, or GPT-4 model to be really good. तो आप देखो, can you see the size of the data? It is only roughly 40 MBs of data, right? You know, and आपने जो actual training किया था उसके लिए आपको 3 महीना लगा अगर, ठीक है? If it took 3 months to train it, this will probably take even less than an hour or 2 hours, guys. So for training SFT, it only requires 2 hours of your entire thing. क्यों? क्योंकि आपका इसमें मोटिवेशन ये नहीं होता है कि आपने जो whatever it has learned, you are trying to modify that. आपका मोटिवेशन ये होता है जो भी आपने पढ़ा है, whatever you have learned, right, how to represent it in the terms of what is being asked, okay? That is what you are teaching in this point, okay? So that is why you talk about it. So data set like these help you to do that, okay? Covers both AI and human written terms, if I talk about, right? Fine-tuned using instruction prompt, following the prompt, if I talk about, right? So I think you can understand. I gave you an example of that, right? A user and an assistant. Basically, it is a conversation between a user and an assistant, if I talk about, right? So you see right here that models don't just talk, they follow structured patterns of instructions trained or shown. That's a pretty important thing, right? If I talk about, right? So no fine tuning required, just provide high quality formatted examples in line, okay? So now, next important thing, if I talk about, okay, let me go back to here, okay, I want to ask you something, okay? I say, who is, maybe I'll use this maybe in the context here, if I have the playground. I don't know, I'll just use this. Yeah. So this is the Hugging Face playground, guys. Okay. Here you can try out many different models. Okay. You can see there are 139 models here. It was just like hyperbolic, which you saw, right? But I think here you can find, but the problem with Hugging Face here is, I mean, the base models are not available here mostly. Okay. So you'll find many of them are like chat models and everything. Okay. तो इसलिए मैंने आपको hyperbolic के पास redirect किया था. But you can use this, you know, it is very easy to use this. You click on the link, right, and you create a token. I think you'll get a token parameterized here. If I talk about, I think tokens यहाँ मुझे दिखा नहीं रहा, but it showed me earlier. Okay, तो आप actually token बना सकते हो. Okay, once you create the token, you can use this I mean use any model. There are a lot of models here. Okay, okay, तो उनमें से मैं एक model use कर रहा हूँ. ठीक है, let me tell you what that term which you saw on the presentation actually is. Okay, for that I'm using a small model. Can you see it here, guys? Okay, it shows me here. Let me what do you say? Um, go to this EFT2N 5 billion chat parameter model. Yeah, exactly. So you can select that one, the one which I already had selected. Let me tell you one thing here, guys. Okay, you see that this is Quen model having very less parameters. Can you see this here, right? 1.5 to 1.8 billion parameters only. Okay, so if I talk about in the context, okay, so they that's the number of parameters for this model. Okay, so now what I do is I ask, you see that I mean you can have all of these parameters right away, whatever you talk about, right? And I'll probably ask here, maybe who is, maybe I'll say, let's say, uh, who is this, guys? Any idea? Who is this person? I have written something like that. Who is this? Any idea, guys? Are we all there? There, guys? Yes, no, maybe.
No.
No, okay, yeah. Actually, guys, there is no such person who exists, by the way. Okay, I think I just made it up. Yeah, you can see here, right? I mean, there is no such person like that. Okay. Now, my question to you is, what will happen? What will happen? What do you think will happen? Tell me, guys, quickly. What do you expect to happen?
Some random answer.
Yes, exactly. I'm happy, sir, you didn't say that it will not say anything. Let's see. Let's run this and try to see what he answers. Oh, it actually it has a bit. If I talk about the Quen model, for all of a sudden has this attribute, I think, because last time I tried with this model, right? It didn't. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, let's ask this model. Okay, let's have a look. What does this one say? On, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. You saw that the earlier model said that no, I mean it does not recall that it said, I mean it saw that particular stuff. But you can see here it says assistant professor at University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School. She specializes in so and so forth, right? Obviously, for obvious reasons, there is no such person. Let me run it again. Okay. Now it says Chinese. I think you can see here, right? Says something in Chinese. I don't know what. UCLA. I think UCLA Berkeley, something there. Now the profession has changed, but something in Chinese it says, I think. If I talk about, let me run it one more time here. Okay. यार ये बड़ा बकवास आंसर दे रहा है. हाँ, चलो ठीक है. Engineer who led the development of Amazon S3 serverless storage gateways. Okay, a Lambda storage gateways or whatever it has talked about, right? I think you can understand the context here, what I'm trying to refer. Okay, let me again come back to it. इसने बड़ा चालाकी से, the actual model which I actually used was this one. should have given us that answer here because this was not trained on it. Although I did something afterwards. Prahlad. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Nice. This is what I was expecting. It it did something which I was not expecting. So you can see here, right? American actress, singer, songwriter who appeared in several television shows, okay, and so forth, right? So, bottom line is what I'm trying to say is these models, when they are created, guys, okay, they hallucinate. This is what is called as hallucination. When the model makes stuff up, okay, hallucinations in language model, if you talk about, right, I mean, obviously it does not know the answer, but it's so confident that it gives the answer, okay. So same way, what do you expect should happen if I talk about, let's say, मैं अगर इसको देता हूं, what do you think will happen, guys? Who is this? What do you think will happen? Quick, guys. Quick. What do you think will happen?
It is the same as it is a base model.
Yeah, exactly, sir. Exactly. I mean, if I talk about, come on. I have to refresh, I believe. Let's have a look. Paste it. And there's the max token limitation. Let me set it to 128 or whatever. And let me run it. Yeah, look at this. Filipino Instagram model web-based media forced to be reckoned with OnlyFans VIP and stuff, whatever. I mean, look at the creative answers it can give you, right? If I talk about, right? So, the fact is, right, these act like storytellers, okay, which where you cannot double check the context. Now, I ask this, can you tell me, guys, okay, I ask the same question here. What do you expect? I ask the same question here. What do you expect?
I think which will give relevance information.
Okay, sir. I mean, will it give or will it not give? You saw
Will it
that the
give?
person is not exist. It does not exist, right? So what will it give you?
If the
Will
person is not existing, then it has to give like kind of like acknowledgement, like sorry, don't
Yes.
have
So
something like that. Okay.
look at this, sir. Yeah, exactly. If I write this name, you see that
Mm,
did not match any document, right? This guy does not exist. I just made it up. So yeah,
okay.
now yeah. So what do you think? You saw that those guys are giving you the answer. Here, what is going to happen?
Sir, I
What is
think
it?
which will not give any search results. I think.
Okay. Let's have a look, sir. Yeah, nicely said. You can see it directly searches the web. Actually, this happens because I mean, nowadays these are integrated, right? If I talk about the tools which they can check upon, I will say that do not search the internet, internet. Just use your memory. Okay, I can say it to the model, by the way. Okay, and when I say this, okay, based on my training data, which includes publicly available information up to mid 2024, there is no widely known or notable person named Amanda whatever. The name doesn't match any public figure, scholar, celebrity, and stuff, right? So you see that Chat GPT does this for you, right? Whereas those models, I think if you talk about, right, they do not have it as of at least not in the context which we are describing. But what do you expect for from Llama 3.1, guys? The same question. What do you expect, everyone? Please.
Same as GPT, Chat
Yeah,
GPT.
exactly, sir. Nicely said. अरे यार, फिर refresh कर. यही सर बड़ा दिक्कत वाला काम होता है इन सब प्लेग्राउंड में काम करने के लिए. Let me just put it as 128 and I autocomplete. Sorry, I do that. Let's have a look what it talks about. You're right about it, right? So I think more or less you can all understand that they, you know, they have been fed with the instruction of saying that, okay, this person does not exist in the context, okay? But let me, you saw that when I wrote here, right, it gives me the answer, right? If I say who is again, if I run this, okay, if I talk about, right, she's a female celebrity born on Friday. So, I mean, look at this, guys, okay? I mean, the kind of things which it does, okay? If I talk about, okay? I hope that's particularly understandable and it's funny on the side note as well, but I think you can understand it is understandable given the context that they are just dreamers of internet, okay? And whatever is probabilistically next token for them, that's what they portray, okay? I think more or less you can understand. Nowhere it is mentioned in a base model that even though it has a big, so many big parameter, it's not able to do that in the context because it has not been trained on it, okay? Now, why does this happen? Maybe training prediction mismatch, if I talk about, right, in the context there, may happen during the time. No real world grounding. By the way, this one, let me tell you, the model which we were discussing about here, right? This is actually a chat model. Can you see this, guys? The problem here is, okay, this is a chat model, meaning it is not a base model. Here, these are not base models. It had a base model, but someone, when they were creating the chat model of it, right, they did not train it specifically saying that please say no if you don't have the context. Do you get it, guys? So those kind of conversations were not part of it, and that is why it shows this. Do you get it? समझ में आ रहा है सबको? Am I understandable to everyone? What I'm trying to
Yes,
say
sir.
here? Yeah. So it has
Yes,
not
sir.
been trained. Yeah, just because it did not have that excerpt of what you say, user and assistant during the time of training, right? That's why it does this for you. Okay. So, but you see that it is a chat model. Okay. So not all chat models are reliable. My big point here. Okay. What I want to make here. Okay. As if I talk about, so that's the whole point. Now, mitigating hallucination. How can it be done? You can have better training data. Refusal fine tuning. Just how do you sort this problem out? Just say, I don't know. When you what you do is you provide some questions which you know that it is not part of its training data. Okay, everyone understood, right? And you just say to answer to that is I don't know. That's the whole point of it, right? So let me do this for you, okay? And I have something for you here, very interesting. If I talk about, let me go to my. I have written it here. Now I'm going to give it few some examples, okay? I created this through Chat GPT. Okay, let's see what I have written here. Okay, I'm giving a set of conversation. Okay, look at this. Uh, guys, do you remember what was the cutoff date for Llama 3? Can anybody tell me? You all remember what was the knowledge cutoff date? You remember? Anybody? Can you remind me?
2023, I guess.
2020.
Exactly. December 2023. Awesome. Very nicely said. Exactly. Look at this, guys. I created some conversation, okay? A user assistant conversation. But look at the style of the conversation. What major conflict started in the year 2022? That means it should be, I mean, if it is trained on the data, it should have that answer, right? If I talk about, I just gave a answer to it, okay? So obviously, if it is trained on the data, because it has a snapshot of the entire web in those 405 billion parameters, it has a snapshot of those entire web, right? So it knows the answer to it, okay? Everyone agrees? Got it? I'm deliberately creating a conversation which has a user and answer to it. Okay, I have a user and an assistant. I created both of it. Okay, you can see here I've just created it. Then tell me about AI. What do you say? By the gas station explosion. If I'll buy the gas station explosion. This event actually happened. Let me show it to you guys. Okay. This event actually, can you see this here, guys? Okay. If I go to the Wikipedia page, can you see this here? On 11th January 2025. You got it, right? So basically, this explosion happened in 2025. So should it be part of क्या नाम है उसका? Should it be part of Llama 3.1? Yes, no. Should it be technically part of Llama's knowledge base? Yes, no.
Not at all.
No, it is cut off,
Exactly.
no?
I
You're
think
right.
it's latest
Exactly.
only.
Exactly. You are right about it. But अगर मैं फिर भी अगर मैं लामा के पास जाऊंगा, because it is a dreamer of internet, if I ask it, okay, let me just go to this, okay, and just ask it, okay, about this question, what happened? You all know, right, what is going to happen in gas station explosion, okay? If I write it, okay, you can see here, okay? I mean, May 2021 has no context about it. Obviously, these facts are invalid. Okay, there is nothing, there was no such explosion in that area, right? So what I'm doing here, look at this. I'm using refusal fine tuning, meaning I am saying that assistant should reply, sorry, I don't know about that. Do you get it? I'm giving the example here. Did you understand, guys? Are you following up on me, whatever I'm talking about? Okay. Understood,
Yes,
right?
Soumi.
Yeah, perfect. Same way, who won the 2022 FIFA World Cup? 2022 should be part of it. So maybe it gives the answer, right? If I talk about, was inflation a big issue in 2022? Yes, maybe in the context there. Tell me about 2025 general election or whatever, right? Sorry, I don't know about that. It says, right? Did Elon Musk do something major with Twitter in 2022? Yes, Elon Musk acquired Twitter in 2022, right? Because it was 2022, so it might be part of the training data, right? What new organelle was discovered in human cell in 2025? Sorry, I don't know about that. Okay. And you can see here, right? I have given such examples, a few of the examples. And then I'm saying here, I've given one of the examples here as this. Who is so and so? Okay. I mean, this guy obviously also does not exist here. If I talk about, let me show it to you here. Okay. I mean, I just gave that in the context. There is no such person which actually exists in that context. Okay. So I think more or less you understand there, right? It says it does not know about that. And user tell me about 2024 Indian general election. Okay. The way it has been trained, you can see here, what is it written here? 2024 Indian general election is what it says, upcoming general election for 17th Lok Sabha, lower house, and so forth. Because this was, I was prompting this model and I saw that it gave me an answer. And in fact, that was part of it during the time, because you are saying something in future is the upcoming election. Can you see this, guys? Is it understandable? सबको समझ में आ रहा है मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? So this thing is, it was there in the training data. So मैंने उसमें से उठाया and I actually double checked it. And in fact, it happened somewhere in April, May. उस time में जो उसको data मिला होगा, it compiled everything and came up with the stuff, right? Now I am writing this guy here. Okay. Let's see if this guy is existing. Okay. I mean, let me just take this here in the context. Okay. You see this, okay? I mean, there is no such person named so and so, okay? I hope everyone understands that, okay? Now, I'll take this entire conversation. I've given it a few examples and I paste it. So I want the chat to continue, okay? For the assistant, okay? And let me see how many maximum tokens, 128. Let me run it, okay? Can you see, guys? What does it do? You understood, right? If I talk about, right? And look at this, guys. Who is the current Prime Minister of India as of 2023? It gives again, as of 2023, right? The current state of it understands. Else, it would have given you that the current prime minister is so and so and stuff. Okay. Now that I have used a refusal fine tuning, okay, you can see that. Okay, it generates it on its own because it does not know when to start and when to stop because those tokens are not part of it. But you see here, right? It does the trick here, right? Sorry, I don't know about it. Okay. And if I talk about in the context here, look at this. What happens in the context here? Let me run this. Okay. Can you see this here, guys? Can you tell me what happened here? Just now I asked the question earlier saying who is this guy, and now he's giving some answer to it. Why did that happen? What do you understand by it? I mean, what is wrong? I need a different answer. Maybe I'll just write it again. Maybe have some temperatures set up, and let me just, yeah, I mean, yeah, can you see this? You saw that refusal fine tuning showed up only during the context window while I was asking the question. I gave the entire context, and then when I again asked it, it forgot the entire context. Did you observe that, guys? Okay. But if I do that again, right? If I take this entire thing again, it will again talk about it, right? And maybe I'll just say, or in fact, I'll talk about what do you say? Who is this? Or maybe uh, can anybody tell me any situation which happened in 2025? Anything? Any question which you would like to ask? Anything which specifically happened in 2025?
Tariff.
Sorry, sir.
How much Trump imposed tariff on India?
How much tariff was is imposed?
Imposed by US.
Okay, by यूएस हो सकता है सर पुराने में उसको कुछ ट्रेनिंग डेटा में होगा तो आई बी स्पेसिफिक इन 2025 राइट ठीक है सर imposed by USA right sir to India
Right.
in 2025 right this is a recent stuff right so I'm asking that question right so you can see here guys it says sorry I don't know about that right but I mean safely tells about that tell me about I mean this it creates hypothetical question so it tries to answer that that's a funny aspect but it does not know when to stop right so please don't be hard on it but yeah, that's how it talks about right you can see but May 9 protests in Russia right you can see that it talks about that right if I talk about right but the moment I ask this again here right this it has forgotten the context so I think you can understand here look at this right union I mean I think this might be actually correct if there was some kind of a tariff earlier in its knowledge base which was there right so if I talk about in the context so that is how these great brains work is it understandable by everyone सबको समझ में आया कि क्या कर रहे हैं हम लोग so the process here is simply you see right how do you train the model you just say that guy don't be overconfident about it just say I don't know right if I talk about right so in the context there right so now I think you can understand it will happen here as well if I talk about now if I train this model with the examples which I set it across if I talk about let me कहाँ गया भाई ये रहा हाँ so I'll just go to this and I give what you say user and assistant right you can see this let me take this name only earlier you saw that it gives me an answer right and let's see what it talks about come on aa gaya bhaiya yeah look at this guys you understood right what is happening here ये सिंपल सा काम अगर उन्होंने कर दिया होता this model would have been probably a good model of its time right I think you can understand the context here right everything has its own shortcomings if I talk about right you see the context here is it understandable by everyone कि हम कर क्या रहे हैं and it is relatively a very simple and non-costly or cheap process right if I talk about did you get it guys सबको समझ में आया yes no maybe हाँ ना सबको
Yes, got it.
perfect sir So this actually talks about a lot of its psychology, right? You can see the way Llama handled it, right? If I talk about Llama handled it means I talk about Llama trained or what do you say, instruction fine-tuned model. How did they handle it? I say I don't need to ask that there. You saw, right? I could not find, right? It already said it, right? So that's what we are talking about. So the Llama 3, this is yet another paper which I would like to share it with all of you as a reference, right? You can visit this whenever you are free enough, right? If you talk about, you can always tweak it. These things are pretty very interesting, guys. Okay, so you can see here, Llama herd of models, what they created. You can see here, Llama 3, 8 billion parameter model. That is the base, right? There, if you don't see anything, that is the base model. And instruct, the same instruct model is also available. Okay, Llama 3 70 billion parameter model. You have the instruct model. Can you see this? Right. Same way, 8 billion, you have the instruct model. This one instruct, and 405 and the instruct model. Okay, so you saw both of it, right? 405 का जो billion parameters के base model और आपने ये भी देखा कि instruct model भी क्या है. So you can see the release stuff, right? If you talk about, this is the release year, by the way. This is not the knowledge cutoff, right? So you give a lot of iterations. So December 2023 is the cutoff date for Llama 3.1 401b instruct model, but it takes few turns before it comes to the market. They have to do a lot of experimentation and everything, right? They can't just go ahead and release it. Okay, so that's the whole point, right? So that's why it released in July 2024. But however, if you talk about, it is a older December model, if I talk about, right? So I think you can see the tick marks here, right? Fine tune. You can see it is not fine-tuned. Can you see this? The base model is not fine-tuned, and that is why you saw those things. Is it multilingual? Yes, you saw that it was able to throw out Hindi, right? As a single example I'm talking about, right? Long context, yes. I mean, you can take very big context if you talk about. Tool use. When you say tool use, that means are you able to use internet with it, right? For Llama 3.1 base model, it is not available to fact check. Okay, so that it does not hallucinate, it fact checks. That is not available for Llama base model. Okay, in fact, any of these base models, you can see that it is not available. But for the instruction model or instruct model, you can see that it is available. So it does a fact check in case it is not finding it on its parameter. I mean, in the known parameters, it will go to the web, search for it, okay, and then talk about it in the context there. Okay, so this is called as the RAG model. You remember, guys? Anybody? Have you heard about RAG? Have you heard about RAG, guys?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. So retrieval, augment, and generate, if you talk about, right? So retrieve from the internet, augment it with different places from which you so search the internet through, and then generate the response according to how the human require it. That's why you have the RAG pipeline in structure. So that is the further more stuff. So you use that in the as a tool, right? So you use internet as a so how? So you saw, right, earlier I asked this question, right? I remember where did we? I think I opened it in different place, I believe. Yeah, Amanda, right? You can see here, right? I wasn't able to find publicly available. It was searching the internet, okay? So you can see the sources. It cites the sources as well, okay? So you can see this, right? You can cite the sources as well, right? So it does that, okay? But I can also ask it to not you ask it to use the muscle memory only, right? If I talk about, right? So I think more or less you can understand the context there if I talk about. So that is how you do it, right? You have the refusal fine tuning and then the tool usage, if I talk about, right? And by the way, yeah, I was talking about the paper here, right? You have these herd of models, right? Let's see. Let's go to hallucinations. They call it factuality, by the way, okay, meaning fact check. Okay, factuality is fact checking, right? Whether whatever the facts given are correct, yes or no, in the context that. So hallucination, it is actually a big challenge, by the way, guys. So you look into it, right? How what they followed in the procedure. They have mentioned it here as well. Look at this. So extract a data snippet from the pre-trained data, generate a factual question, okay, sample response from llama 3 to that question, okay, score the correctness, right, for generation, and score the informativeness, and then generate a refusal. Generate a refusal simply means the things which it just imaginingly said, okay, just delete those and say that you don't have, I mean, I don't have access to the information because I don't, sorry, I don't recall because that's not in my memory, if I talk about, right? So you do it for a set of given text, and then you wind up saying the model that, okay, now I understand. There will be a switch in those neural networks which you saw earlier in the entire transformers, right? If you talk about, which gets triggered like a trigger, right? If it sees some information which is not in the context window, or it is hypothetical, right? That gets lit up, right? So that's how it gets trained up in the context there. Okay, so there you can look into the context there, right? So in case you are pretty interested into how these things work out. Okay, now moving forward, if I talk about, right, feeding the model with better conversation, right? Now you saw, guys, okay, earlier that I told you, right, you generate a set of conversations, right? And when you generate conversations, I showed you how a conversation actually looks like, right? Where is it? I think I closed it off, right? I showed you that open assistant, right, conversation, which I showed you, containing about 85,000 rough conversation, right? The idea is it is a human intensive process, right? Okay, I hope everyone understands, because if you want to generate 1 million conversation, right, that is 10 lakh, right, you need a lot of humans to do that, right? But in today's world, I mean, you don't have enough neither you want to spend that much, okay, or you don't want to go ahead and, what you say, create such like that. And you know, right, if for everything synthetic stuff exists, right, meaning you can manufacture it on your own, right? You just need some blueprint, like you get some blueprint, some original human conversation, and then you synthetically produce conversation by using another neural network which can train and generate these kind of conversation. समझ में आ रहा है सबको what I'm trying to say? Is it understandable? Because you need huge amount of data. That was only 85,000, right? Conversation data, if I talk about. But if you need millions of it, right, you need to hire many people, okay, in order to create that many number of conversations, right? Everyone agrees to it. सबको समझ में आ रहा है मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? Yes, no, maybe. Are we all there, guys? Yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So in that case, so you can see, right, we need massive, diverse, high quality conversation, right? Human written. So I think you can understand. One of the platform is Ultra Chat. I'll probably, this is a GitHub repo, by the way, guys. Okay, you can just have a reference to it in the context here, right? If I talk about, just have a look into it, right? Ultra Chat. This is actually a chat conversation, by the way. Okay, so but it is huge. Okay, it has been synthetically released, and if I talk about, right, in the context, you can see 457K conversations. If I talk about, that's a huge set of conversation, right? If I talk about, right, which basically got generated from both synthetic manner as well as natural manner, right? So you have the processes, you have some natural stuff, right? And then you generate, what do you say, synthetic data, right? You can see the way it is here, right? You have a question. Again, you saw that prompt, what was that format we said? Dash and assistant, user and assistant. So user asks a question and there is the answer to that question, okay, and you create many of it, right? If I talk about, right, so there's this Atlas map which thankfully they have given, guys. Okay, you can click on this link which I clicked here, Atlas Explorer, okay, of how the word cloud actually looks like, right? Let me skip the tour. You can see the different things which are part of it. Look at this, guys. Okay, so algorithm, there are topics, different topics on algorithms, Japanese culture, financial technology, genetic engineering, marine ecosystem. You can see many of it, Hinduism, music industry, right? Art and stuff, right? All of those things, if I talk about, right? And these are all different, what do you say, segments on which the data has been fabricated. And you can see, guys, right? Can you see here that the moment I, what do you say, talk about it, can you see here? There is one point, automatically it came up. If I talk in the sea of points, each of them is a point. What challenges is Kamla or whatever, right? In the social change. So there is, what do you say, an answer to it, right? So there is like a list which is containing so and so forth, right? So I go to randomly go to here, right? If I talk about, right, let me just maybe click on it or whatever. Come on. Yeah, I'll just click on that. Aaja bhai. Yeah. Can you see on the left-hand side, guys? It shows me here the conversation, which is part of it, right? Can you provide an overview of public transport system in Hudson, right? And there is an answer to it, okay? So that's how it talks about, okay? You have large corpus of it, right? And now you can get, since you have a lot of synthetic as well as human label data, right? You can now more accurately train these large language models, okay? This is publicly available as well, okay? In case you want to go ahead and download it, it is totally available for public, okay, in the context there, right? If I talk about, and there are leaderboards for each one of them, by the way, okay? So wherein you talk about in the context of which conversation model or conversation is really good enough, or maybe having meets the benchmark, right? Like human like benchmark, right? So all of those things, all of those parameters are taken up, okay? If I talk about, so you can see here synthetic conversation created using multi-turn prompting, right? And large scale GPT dialogues, okay, generated at scale using assistant prompts, if I talk about, and alignment protocols. There are, if I talk about, right, they follow these protocols, instruction filtering, right? टोन ट्यूनिंग कि आपका टोन कैसा होना चाहिए किसी चीज को रिप्लाई करने के लिए, राइट? इफ आई टॉक अबाउट, राइट, मल्टी टर्न कोहेरेंस, if I talk about, like, because you see, right, you forget the context window if you have a long conversation, but they are made in such a way that it is trained on a very large piece of text over certain iterations, if I talk about, right? So generate, I mean, the training pipeline is, you see, right, generate synthetic dialogue via prompt templates. You have filter for quality and so on and so forth, and fine tune the model with the conversation, right? If I talk about, so better conversation means better assistance, if I talk about, as simple as that, right? In the context there, right? So obviously, guys, there is one more thing you saw, right? Long term, you saw the problem already, right? There is long-term fog, which is nothing but vague recollection, okay? Which is nothing but, which is baked into the weights, right? I told you about that, right? Trained across those trillions of tokens, if I talk about, right? Which is there in the neural network, right? If I talk about of the transformers, right? But the working memory can have, what do you say, sharp context, if I talk about, and that's why you have those context tokens, which are particularly talked about in the context there, right? How to reply back, okay? So in the context here, right? So you have long-term memory, which are stored in model weights, fuzzy distribution of knowledge. Fuzzy is like hazy distribution, which is, I mean, not so clear about, right? If I talk, you saw, right? When you copied and pasted excerpts from those Wikipedia article, it tried to complete it, but not that accurate, if I talk about. So it has fuzzy memory, if I talk about, right? Working memory, it is stored in the context window, focused on immediate access, and program. They are also programmable via prompts. You saw, right? I showed it to you as examples, if I talk about, right? So I think you can understand prompting is what is basically the working memory, okay?